different organizations, and we are engaging almost 1,200 young people declarations that takes place at the United Nations, but none of those are the open declarations. Open declaration in a mean that they are being forged by the young people that are not part of the system, or the young people that are not accredited in the system. So this declaration is unique because we are bringing the voices of grassroots, especially those young people who are actually in the regions, in the places, in the countries where peace means something to them, and peace actually means something to them. So this declaration serves this purpose. So we are in the process of consultation. There's online consultations going on through our forum. There are town halls going on. We do town hall every Sunday to have the voices of young people with us, and they tell us what peace is. I'm sure you have got the email from me, and everyone is answering those questions to us, either Google form, the town hall consultations, or the consultation like this one. So once we will have all the voices, or the voices by May 15th, our team will get into working on it, working on designing the final document that we will be announcing at the 13th International Youth Conference on 21st May at the University of California, Los Angeles, where we have the academic professionals as well with us, helping us write this declaration in technical ways. And then we have a lot of multilateral professionals from different multilateral organizations, not just the UN, but from the World Bank, from the European Union, and different young professionals who work in different multilateral organizations as well. So this declaration is across the board from the grassroots for the grassroots, and it will go to the Security Council right after the International Youth Conference 13 ends. We are already in communication with the UN Security Council regarding this declaration and what it is going to be, and they are excited and they're glad that we are doing this work by bringing the voice from across the world on what peace means to the world, and it is connected with the UN Security Council's resolution 2250. So your voices really, really matters to us, and we want to make sure that is why everything is recorded, is streamed, and so we want to make sure that all the voices are going, all the voices are being heard. So without further ado, we will start a consultation. Then I will give the floor back to Nino. Nino.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. I just want to reflect on one point that Ali mentioned. It is really a historic declaration that we are working on, and it is truly an honor to be here with all of you, and you should really feel proud of yourselves to be a part of the declaration that will be submitted to the UN Security Council. It has never been done before, and you can think of yourself as someone who is driving the real change. So just wanted to say that. I just want to give floor to our associate, IOI Associate Vincent Evans, and he will then introduce our distinguished speakers. So, Vincent, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you very much. So, I know we have a lot to do this session, so I'm going to start really quickly and introduce myself. I'm Vincent. I am a student at the University of California, Los Angeles, as well as an IOI associate. And I would be delighted to introduce formally our next four speakers, all IOI associates, and they'll be talking about some of the particular tracks within the Youth Declaration. First, I would like to introduce Ms. Jaden Ackerman, who will be talking about the first track, the second track, Peace and Security in Practice, specifically in education. Ms. Ackerman, take the floor.
Hello all, distinguished delegates, fellow youth leaders, and honored guests. My name is Jaden Ackerman, representing the International Organization of Youth. It is my honor and privilege to address you all today at the 2026 ECOSOC Youth Forum. I am honored to contribute to the Pathway to Peace Youth Declaration and carry this momentum forward for the International Youth Conference 13. Peace is often described as the absence of war. But for many communities, peace is something more practical, the presence of opportunity, dignity, and trust. Peace exists when a child can attend school safely, when a family believes tomorrow can be better than today, and when institutions are close enough to listen before problems become crises. I've had the privilege of studying policy, working in government, and engaging with international institutions. In these spaces, I learned something important. Strong declarations alone do not create peace. Policies matter, but policies only succeed when communities are prepared, informed, and included in the change that they are asked to make. Real peace is built when global commitments reach the local level.
will not be reflecting society. I call on more users to in AI decision making, ensure AI is used ethically and responsibly, and invest in education so young people can shape this technology. Peace in the future will not only depend on politics and but also on technology. And that future must be built with youth, not without them. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Now, without further ado, I would like to reintroduce Nina back to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the advocacy statements. Now we will have a brief 5-minute Q&A. So if any of you have any questions, concerns, comments, please feel free to raise your hand and we will be able to answer your questions. And after that, we will start our next session.
And especially to my fellow change makers. My name is Tejaswini Gupta, and I'm a youth delegate with the International Organization of Youth, and I serve as the president of the United Nations Association of USA at USC. And today I stand before you to speak about one of the most defining questions of our generation. Can AI become a pathway to peace? We are living at a turning point. Artificial intelligence, the ability of machines to learn, reason, and decide is no longer science fiction. It is here and it is accelerating. AI 4 months back is not the same AI today. The growth rate is exponential, and if we do not keep up, we won't be able to catch up. War has evolved. We no longer fight with armies on battlefields. Today's conflicts play out in cyberspace, in algorithms, in the manipulation of information at scale. Disinformation campaigns destabilize elections. Autonomous systems make legal decisions faster than any human can. Surveillance technologies silence dissent before it can organize. Big data collected from your phone, your searches, your movements, feed systems of control that would have seemed dystopian just a generation ago. But here's the complexity we must hold. The same technology carries extraordinary promise. AI can predict famine before it strikes. It can map conflict zones and coordinate humanitarian responses in real time. Information is the most powerful tool for peace we've ever had. This is a sword with two edges, and right now we are not in control of which side cuts. This is why framework matters, not as bureaucratic paperwork, but as a difference between a tool that serves humanity and a weapon that destroys it. We need global governance, binding, transparent, and inclusive that ensures AI systems used in conflict zones meet humanitarian standards. That autonomous weapons are prohibited, that surveillance tools cannot be deployed against civilians, that information environment is treated as commons worth protecting. We, the young people, cannot wait to be invited to that table. Decisions are being made right now about how AI is built, trained, and deployed, and this will shape the world for decades. We are the ones who will inherit it. We are also the ones who understand that our generation must be in every room where the rules are written, which is why I call upon everyone present here to come join our International Youth Conference 13 in Los Angeles from 21st to 24th May and be a part of the pathway to peace. We have the tools, we have the moment, and what we need to do now is the will to choose peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'll go this way. So next up, we will have Holly.
Bureaucracy. When the pathway to educational work exists on paper, but not in practice. Refugee children face the greatest barriers to education and employment, and yet we still place them on the sidelines. The resources are out there, but a key problem remains. The people who need them most cannot find them. When they do, they're unable to access them due to a disconnect in what is available and the unique disruptive circumstances of young people in their forced displacement. When refugee youth are placed at the center of the room, the reality speaks for itself. Right. Mary Maker, South Sudanese refugee and UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador, founded Elim Shahab, which has placed over 30 students out of camps and into universities. A mission that grew out of her own frustration of feeling stuck in such. Congo Connection was founded by the direct experience of violence and injustice, and has since built pathways to meaningful employment, skills development, and economic improvement. Lived experience is not just a valuable experience, it's crucial to building solutions that are real and change. As team change makers, we all do believe at no time, yet no one is forced to leave their home. But until that day comes, it is ever more pressing that we ensure the protection, inclusion, and agency of displaced youth, not as recipients of policy, but as architects. I call on this forum, member states, and the bodies that will receive this. Sponsor connectors, resource and youth-led orgs who already hold the trust, the language, and the lived knowledge that institutions cannot manufacture. Bring displaced youth into the room where decisions are made, not after the fact, but at the table, from the very beginning. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, fellow youth leaders, and honored guests. My name is Tram Park, a delegate of International Organization of Youth and a member of University of Southern California's chapter of United Nations Association. I grew up in Vietnam, attending the United Nations International School, so this institution was never abstract. Discussions about Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, were already in my classrooms before I knew their global significance. In many ways, I understood the language of SDGs before I understood my own path. Surrounded by both rapid development, these goals were not general ideas. They rather shaped how I saw change happening around me. But even with that proximity, there was always a distance. I could learn about these systems, speak about them, and believe in them, yet I was not inside the rooms where decisions were being made. And still, I knew that my generation would be the ones living with the decisions long after their time. As Kofi Annan once said, you're never too young to lead, and you should never doubt your capacity to triumph where others have not. This is not only a quote of encouragement, but also how much responsibility we have as someone who will drive the change in upcoming generations. Global institutions have already taken important steps to engage youth. The next step is to ensure that engagement becomes structured and sustained. I respectfully call on the United Nations and the member states to commit to these actions. First, establish formal youth advisory bodies that are directly connected to decision-making processes, not in a parallel or hierarchical way, but more so of an integration. Second, ensure meaningful youth representation within national delegations and international forums so perspectives are included at the points of negotiation. These commitments are not just about adding new voices for the sake of inclusion. They're about strengthening the quality and sustainability of policy decisions by including a new perspective. Because when youth are included as partners in shaping policy, they're better prepared to implement it, carry it forward, and sustain it over time. Thank you. It was Tram Park speaking on global governance and youth advocacy.
Thank you so much for our incredible speakers. Now I think the real fun of today's side event begins. We're going to open the floor to listen to your statements. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to call 5 names. If you hear your name, please create a line right over here because all of you are going to make the statements from the podium. So I feel like you're speaking from the UNGA. So it's going to be like you're doing a very important work, which you are. I also want to make sure that all of you know that this is live stream and we're also recording your statements. So yeah, just be aware of that. And each speaker will have exactly 2 minutes. And when I do this, clock it, you basically have 20 seconds until you should be done with your speech. So the first 5 names, and I'm sorry in advance if I'm writing your name. The first one is Fatuma Hassan. We have Fatuma Hassan here. Okay, Fatuma, you will be the first speaker. And you can start, you can sit right next to the speaker, the first one, but the other first speakers after Fatuma will be Adia Anand. Adia Anand. Okay, you will be the second speaker. Next we have Ainoa de los Milagros. Perfect.
fourth speaker will be Carlos.
Plaza from Ecuador. Do we have Carlos here? Is Carlos okay? And the fifth speaker will be Alma Camila Ocampos from Paraguay. Perfect. We have our first 5 speakers. Good luck, and just, take a look at me, and I will give you this little sign. Yeah, thank you. The floor is yours.
Distinguished delegates, good afternoon. My name is Fatuma Hassan, and I am here at the ECOSOC Youth Forum, and today the International Organization of Youth, representing Teach For All. And it is my honor to be here with all of you to speak on youth advocacy and global governance. While young people today have a seat at a table and have been given a voice, it is time they are given the legislative pen and handed control over their futures through meaningful inclusion. Every single young person in this generation bears witness to the harsh realities of our world, at the palm of their hands, at the click of a few buttons. This generation does not encounter global crises as distant events, but in real time, unfiltered, constant, unavoidable. Yet, young people turn to the streets or social media to advocate for the causes they care about, disengaging from the institutions that have been created to serve them. The reasoning is simple. These systems ask them to observe, but not to influence, to inherit, but not to decide. This gap points to the failure of global governance to evolve with the generation it governs. Across many major international processes, from climate negotiations to peace-building frameworks, youth participation remains simply advisory, not decision-based. The result is a widening trust gap and inadequate action. We see this through climate policy that is moving too slowly, waiting for the generation that will inherit its consequences to act. We see it in peace processes, where young people are recognized as stakeholders and are rarely in resolution. If we are set to inherit today's gridlock, then young people must be part of shaping the solutions now. We can and must design youth participation that is meaningful, where young people are not only consulted, but embedded at every step.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Adia Nan, representing Eduker, and I'm here to talk about AI and future of peace. When we talk about AI, we often focus on its risks. AI is taking hold incredibly quickly. It's influencing how we learn, communicate, and make decisions. But what is AI, and how do we allow such a new technology to so quickly shape the way we think, learn, and make decisions? The issue isn't whether AI is inherently good or bad, it's that we're approaching it passively as users rather than informed participants. The power to build and control AI is concentrated within a small number of companies and regions, and many young people still lack access to the tools, infrastructure, and education needed to meaningfully engage with it. And that connects to a deeper narrative about youth. We are often treated as recipients of technology, not as co-creators of it. Youth are not just future stakeholders, we are current stakeholders, and we deserve to be meaningfully included in the systems being built today. We are the generation that will live with the long-term consequences of these technologies, and we must also have a role in shaping them. Because if we're not, then we're not building systems for the future. We're building systems that leave us out of it. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Ainhoa Melano Guerra, representing Peru. I'm here to speak about diplomacy remanded. In a world where languages are constantly evolving, our approach to diplomacy must also evolve. Today, the dynamics of global governance have changed, but all too often our responses remain the same. The inclusion of civil society is fundamental as it allows us to see realities, patterns, and dimensions of problems that often go unnoticed. Each person brings a different perspective, and it is precisely this diversity that allows us to better understand the challenges and build more comprehensive solutions. Inclusion alone is not enough. We must also demand honesty and transparency from those who make decisions and represent us. Too often, political correctness obscures the true magnitude of the problems we face. Without a clear and honest understanding of reality, it is impossible to design solutions that are truly sustainable and impactful. Reminding diplomacy means adopting dialogue, transparency, empathy, and inclusion as fundamental principles. It means understanding that differences are not obstacles but essential tools for progress. The richness of our perspectives, where we agree and where we disagree, strengthens our ability to respond to global challenges. As young people, we have a key role in this transformation. As one delegate said yesterday, we don't wait for change, we create it. Our ability to question, act, and propose new ideas allows us to build a more dynamic, inclusive, and representative diplomacy for today's world. If we truly want to move forward, we must begin with ourselves, because reimagining diplomacy not only involves transforming systems, but also changing the way we listen to, engage in dialogue with, and understand others. Thank you.
Hi to everyone, Excellency, delegates, and young leaders. I represent Ecuador, the University of Plaza, Ecuador, and the National University of Chimborazo, in the center of the country. A country that today, like many others, faces the deepest scars of polarization. I come from a region where the noise of division often defends solutions and where governance has been weakened by the lack of meeting points. Peace building is not a state of stillness, but an active exercise of inclusive governance. For my country and for the world, polarization has not only been a political disagreement, it has been a barrier to development and a trigger for insecurity. We cannot talk about sustainable peace if we do not have the courage to build spaces for dialogue and consensus that are stronger than our difference. To my young colleagues, I say, indignation is an engine, but the occupation of political spaces is a tool. We cannot allow decisions about our future to be made in rooms we were made and not present. We must appropriate politics not to repeat the mistakes of the past, but to transform it in a mechanism of relevant and real change. As the Uruguayan writer Eduardo Galeano said, many small people in small places doing small things can change the world. Today, those small places are our communities, our dialogue tables, and our institutions. It's time to move from protest to proposal, and from division to construction. Our generation not only inherits the world, it has the responsibility to govern it by a new ethic of peace. Thank you very much.
Distinguished delegates, honored guests, and fellow advocates. My name is Alma Campos Irala, and I'm from Paraguay. I stand before you today to speak on pathways to peace through global governance and youth advocacy from the perspective of Paraguay. A nation of resilience and promise, yet one facing deep structural challenges that directly affect peace and human dignity. In Paraguay, significant gaps persist. Our education and health systems remain under-resourced, limiting access and quality of care. Informal employment continues to affect a large portion of the population, leaving many without stability or protection. We must also confront difficult social realities. In 2026, early age marriage remains legal in Paraguay, reflecting deeper challenges in the protection of youth rights, particularly for girls. This is not only a legal issue, it is a barrier to education, equality, and long-term peace. Now I would like to address my community in my native language, Spanish. Esta mañana, la ministra de la Juventud destacó que Paraguay se posiciona como un ejemplo global en energía renovable y ha alcanzado una sólida calificación de grado de inversión. Estos son logros importantes, sí, pero no podemos ignorar la dura realidad. Mientras generamos energía limpia y atraemos inversión, paraguayos siguen muriendo en hospitales sin insumos ni condiciones dignas, entre ellos mi padre. Y nuestras comunidades colapsan bajo los raudales cada vez que llueve intensamente. Al mismo tiempo, estamos perdiendo nuestros bosques a un ritmo alarmante por la expansión de la soja, sacrificando nuestro territorio y así nuestro futuro. La gobernanza no debe limitarse a celebrar el progreso, debe responder a las realidades vividas y garantizar que el crecimiento se traduzca en dignidad, seguridad y oportunidades para todos. Gracias.
Thank you so much to all of you. We have heard amazing statements and we have more to come. Our next speaker is Jess Field. Please come on this side of the room. Next we have Raymond from Nigeria, Soya Kalinsky, and Omar Alami Hamadane. And our fifth speaker will be Osariaman Blessing from Nigeria. The floor is yours.
Excellencies, dear fellow peace builders, and dear friends, I'm Dr. Jasmia and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Peking University, China. So my topic is peace and security in practice. What does peace look like in practice? Not in resolutions, not in polished speeches, but on the ground, in the dirt, in the daily lives of the communities, who are not just fighting for their rights, but for their survival. So I'm a scientist, I study soil, I spend my days and nights looking at the invisible world, which is beneath our feet, the microbes, the fungi, and the delicate networks that makes the life above ground possible. So I study how pollution and the microplastics and the heavy metals slowly poison our world. So you will think, what is the connection between these microbes and the peace and the security? So let me tell you, I have learned a hard truth that no textbooks have taught me. When soil dies, then crop fades. And when crop fails, then hunger spreads. And when hunger spreads, then communities, the people are displaced. And when displacement happens at a large scale, competition over the resources begins. And it is not peaceful. So it ignites conflict. This is not just in theory, this is not just happening now in our world. And in my home country, I'm from Pakistan, and in every corner of the world where environmental degradation is happening and the ability to respond is outrunning. So peace is, so let me be very clear about the peace and the security that is into the practice. Peace in practice means reorganizing, recognizing that a drying river is not just an environmental problem. It is a threat to the regional security. Peace in practice means investing in the soil restoration, in the calm water infrastructure, and in the renewable energy grids, not in the charitable environmental projects, but as a serious strategic peace-building tools. Peace in practice means putting young scientists, young farmers, and the young women in the decision-making table, not as observers, not as tokens, but as a co-architect of our collective futures. Actually, I have extracted my chip just yesterday, so speaking is a little bit, yeah.
But we have to wrap up.
Yeah.
Each
So,
person gets 2 minutes.
Yeah. So, because here is the uncomfortable truth, the communities most affected by the climate change and the environmental collapses are the least heard in the room where security is concerned. They are suffering is documented, but their voices are missing. So this is not just unfair, but we cannot build a peace if we refuse to see the root cause of the instability. So I ask you today, when you leave the room, do peace differently, not tomorrow, not someday, but today. And not when the crisis is worsened, but just now. The soil is waiting, the planet is waiting, and the young people of every frontline community is waiting. And we, the generation, are ready to take the stand. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, I am from Nigeria, and permit me to greet my people in the 3 major languages in Nigeria. Ahambo Raymond Ejikemowa. Orupamini Raymond Ejikemowa. Sonana Raymond Ejikemowa. I am representing Georgia State University, Atlanta, and major group for children and youth at the 2026 ECOSOC Youth Forum. I speak today as a Nigerian citizen. We are a nation of 150 million dreams. The energy behind the Silicon Lagoon and the pulse of global culture. We are the most vibrant stakeholders of Africa's future, but today we are global citizens with local chains. We are demanding a global governance structure that recognizes good governance and not luxury, because it is a fundamental security requirement. In Nigeria, the gap between our potential and our reality is widened by the deliberate suppression of the youth voice. Nigeria is the front line for this struggle. In the 2023 general election, we exercised the power of the office of the citizen. We turned out in numbers, not for a person, but for quality representation. We queued for hours to claim our democracy, but we were met with a wall. We sought technology weaponized to cloud transparency and the jailing of those who demanded that their votes should count. This mirrors the NSAS legacy, where the simple cry for accountability was met with military response. You cannot govern a future that you are trying to arrest. I demand three things for the LA pathway to peace: treat internet shutdowns and glitches of electoral transparency as breaches of international security. We call for international oversight when security forces are deployed to intimidate young voters and peaceful protesters. The UN must firmly protect young leaders who face state-led persecution and demand accountable government. If democracy fails in Nigeria, it fails for the world at large. My name is Raymond Ejikemo. Thank you so much.
Before I call the other speakers, I want to make sure that we all know that we have to make sure that our speeches are within 2 minutes, because we want to hear as many delegates as we can. And that's why, if you please see me, please make sure that you're about to wrap up your speech. So, thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Omar Alami, representing the Kingdom of Morocco. I stand before you all to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. Global governance must evolve too often. Decisions shaping our future are made without us. Yet, we are the generation that will live through the consequences of climate change. Conflict, inequality, and technological disruption, including youth, is not symbolic. It is essential for legitimacy, for innovation, and for sustainability. In Morocco, we are witnessing promising efforts to empower young people through education, participation, and civic engagement. We youth must go further, not only nationally, but also globally. Youth must not merely be consulted, they must be co-creators of policies that affect their lives. Youth advocacy is not just about speaking, it is about influencing. It is about turning ideas into actions and actions into impact. Across communities and continent, young people are already building bridges, promoting dialogue and preventing conflict. What we need now is trust. We need space and meaningful access to institutions of governance. As a 14-year-old, I may be young, but I understand one thing clearly. Peace cannot be built without those who will inherit it. Let us move from listening to youth to partnering with youth, from including youth to empowering youth, from promising to action, because the future of peace is not tomorrow. It is being shaped today, and we the youth are ready for it. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and my friends. My name is Zoe Klinsky, and I'm honored to be here today as a youth advocate with UNICEF and the founder of the United Youth Council. Some of you may know me from my work at the UN or through my social media where I advocate for youth empowerment. It's good to be with you all, the young people. Please applaud if you're a young person, a young leader. Global governance shapes the systems that define our world. It determines who has access to education, whose voices are heard, and how peace is built and sustained. But for something that affects young people so directly, we are still too often on the outside looking in. Youth are invited into conversations, but rarely into the decision-making spaces. And that is exactly the gap that we need to address. Because youth advocacy is not about being included for representation. It is about being trusted with responsibility. Through my work, I have seen what happens when that trust exists. Young people are not only raising awareness, we are actively mobilizing resources, supporting education initiatives, and creating tangible action in our communities. We are not preparing to lead someday, we are already leading, but we need a bigger platform. If global governance is effective, it must reflect the realities of those it represents. That means moving beyond symbolic youth engagement and embedding young people into the structures where decisions are actually made. You have all come together here from almost every corner of the world to be here today because you believe in change. That already says something very powerful about this room and the people in it. And it is all on us to make sure that belief turns into something real. Thank you.
What is peace when I don't have a roof over my head? What is peace when there is no stability? Hello, distinguished guests, distinguished delegates, fellow young leaders and honey guests. My name is Marcel Simon Blessing, and I am the founder of Project 360, a non-profit foundation that addresses housing insecurities and injustice, and also a member of the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth, and I will be representing the Federal Republic of Nigeria. When we speak about peace, we often speak of conflict resolution and diplomacy, but peace is also about stability, dignity, and access to basic human needs, starting with a place to call home. Nigeria is facing one of the most severe housing crises globally, with an estimated 24.4 million people experiencing homelessness, with a higher percentage being the youth. In cities like Lagos, many young people are forced to survive under bridges, in motorbikes, or even sleep on cardboards and in unfurnished buildings due to global governance and the systems that are not in place. Areas such as Oshodi Underbridge reflect this reality, where vulnerable youth sleep on cardboard and navigate daily survival without safe shelter or protection. Housing insecurity disrupts education, mental well-being, and economic opportunity. And we need systems to be in place. To achieve lasting peace, we must build systems that do not overlook the youth, but instead empower them by having the government and ministers and also the United Nations at large to support non-profit organizations and structures that are in place to provide basic necessities to our youth, including housing. This includes investing in youth-led and community-based solutions that addresses housing insecurity directly and also sustainably. Global governance must move beyond symbolic youth inclusion toward real empowerment and structural change. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable speakers. Next 5 people speaking will be Kubra Mohammadi, Bianca Galvez Gombos from Brazil, Bianca from Brazil. Next we have Alia Budkar, Teach for All, and I'm so sorry if I'm butchering your names. Next we have, Alejandra Lecaros from Peru. Alejandra from Peru. Okay, perfect. And lastly, we have Joy Ralamborio, sorry, from Canada. Sorry. All right, amazing. And again, please make sure that we're delivering all the statements within 2 minutes. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Kubram Hamadi. I am from Afghanistan. My topic is about peace and security in practice and on the ground. Peace and security are not abstract ideas for me. They come from that growing up in Afghanistan and seeing how quickly life can change when safety and education are taken away. My understanding comes from lived experience, from the work I do through my nonprofit, the Laurent Foundation, which supports girls' education in Afghanistan. When I talk about peace, I mean something very basic. A girl being able to open a book without fear. A teacher being able to teach without hiding. A family feeling safe enough to let their daughters dream about her future. These simple things are still out of reach for countless girls in Afghanistan today, so we create them ourselves. Through the Laurent Foundation, I work with girls in Afghanistan in different provinces. Our underground school and house-to-house classes are only exist because communities trust us. Every decision requires caution, choosing safe location, planning quiet schedule, and making sure students and teachers can come and go out without drawing attention. This is what peace and security look like in practice. Small, careful action that protect people and keep hope alive. To me, peace is dignity, security is possibility. And even in the hardest condition, young people in Afghanistan are still creating both. My nonprofit is one small part of that effort, but it reflects what I believe deeply. When systems fail, communities step in. And when girls are given even a small space to learn, they build their own future.
Hi everyone. Oh, wait, I think this is better. All right, distinguished delegates and honorable guests. My name is Bianca and I'm an education advocate and social entrepreneur from Brazil. And I wanted to tell you that a couple of years ago, when facilitating a discussion at an incarceration center in Guarujá, Brazil, I met a young boy who told me something that I would never forget. He said, it is only through education that we will achieve a different future. And that future meant something away from violence and away from crime. But for millions of young people in Brazil and around the world, that future feels out of reach. Brazilian youth has countless barriers to education, but the greatest is violence. When communities are unsafe, classrooms become inaccessible, and learning is disrupted, and hope begins to fade. Peace and security, as mentioned by other leaders, are not abstract concepts. They are daily conditions that determine whether a young person can sit in a classroom or is pushed towards cycles of violence. While the UN plays a critical role at the global level, peace cannot be viewed from the top alone. We must think how power is distributed. We must bring decision-making closer to the people who are most affected, and these are young people. This is why a bottom-up approach is also very essential. Across Brazil and across the world, young people are already creating solutions, and I see this here with you guys today. You're leading community projects and developing innovative ways to reduce violence and expand access to education. But too often, these efforts remain underfunded, unseen, unsupported, and untrusted. Peace and security in practice means collaboration between the top and the bottom. It means listening, empowering, and especially acting together, so that one day, that young boy and millions like him can truly choose a different path. A path where they live in a safe environment, pursue education, and build the future of their dreams. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, honorable guests, good afternoon. My name is Joy Marisua. I'm from Madagascar, but today I'm representing the Sustainable Game from Canada, where I am based as an athlete. I'm here to speak on peace and security in practice and how sports contribute to it. When we talk about peace and security, we often think of policies, institutions, and global agreements. But for many young people, peace is experienced in everyday moments, in whether we feel safe, included, and connected in their communities. As we work toward the sustainable development goals, one question remains central. How do we mainly engage youth in shaping the future we are building? Through my work with the Sustainable Game, I explore how sport can serve as the bridge between local reality and global goals, not just as recreation, but as tool to create inclusive spaces where young people from different backgrounds can come together, build trust, and develop a sense of belonging. In this space, sport becomes more than a game, it becomes a platform for skills development. Young people learn how to communicate, collaborate, lead, and navigate conflicts, the same way we call for in peace building and governance. But sport can also play another critical role. It creates space for healing in community facing social inequities, displacement, and growing impact of climate change. Sport can offer a sense of stability, release, and reconnection. It allows young people to process experience, rebuild confidence, and find strength in community. By investing in community-based sports initiative, we are not only supporting physical activity, we are creating an environment where resilience is built, where leadership is practiced, and where young people can meaningfully engage with challenges like climate action and social inclusion. If we are serious about peace and security, we must invest in not only systems, but the space where the skills, relationship, and foremost healing are taking place. Because peace and security are not only negotiated, they are practiced every day in the way we come together, support another, and create space where everyone has the opportunity to belong and thrive. Every day in the space we choose to invest in, sports is not separated from peace and security. It's one of the ways we build and sustain it. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Alia Forkar and I am representing Teach for All. I am here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. I come from India, where I have met young people who carry extraordinary potential but are often unheard. I sat with students who dream of becoming leaders, innovators, and change makers, yet hesitate to speak because they've never been told their voices belong in the rooms where decisions are made. And that is where the problem lies. It's not lack of ideas, it's not lack of passion, it's a lack of access. Access to platforms, to representation, and to systems that are willing to listen. Through my work, I've seen how decisions made in global spaces ripple into local realities. Policies discussed in rooms like this shape communities, classrooms, and futures. But when youth are excluded from these conversations, governance becomes distance. Something that happens to us rather than with us. And over time, this distance turns into disengagement. Youth advocacy for me is deeply personal. It's about dignity. It's about each and every young person in this room realizing that their voice has value. Not someday, but today, right now. Because when that shift happens, it does not just empower an individual, it transforms entire communities. It creates hope. But meaningful inclusion requires more than moments. It requires structural change. It requires you, not just as participants, but as decision makers, not just present as spectators, but influential. Global governance must evolve from being representative in theory to being inclusive in practice, because peace, equity, and sustainable development cannot be built without the perspectives of those who will live their consequence the longest. Today, I stand here carrying not just my own voice, but the voice of many unheard ones. To conclude, the question is not whether youth are ready to contribute, but instead whether global systems are ready to share power. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Alejandra Legados, a Peruvian youth advocate, and I'm honored to address the Chamber of the Diplomacy Reimagined. According to the United Nations, 123 million people are forcibly displaced worldwide, the highest figure ever recorded. These are not merely statistics. They reflect the limitation of diplomatic framework that remain too often reactive, exclusive, and slow to adapt. At the same time, conflicts are becoming increasingly complex and proactive, challenging the very mechanism designed to solve them. Peru, like many Latin American countries, stands at a critical juncture where persistent structural challenge ranging from institutional fragility to deep-rooted inequality continue to undermine the public trust and long-term stability. These realities highlight the limits of traditional approach and reinforce the need for reimagined diplomacy, one that is more collaborative, adaptive, and capable of addressing international, regional, and global crises. Diplomacy cannot remain confined to closed rooms and delayed consensus while crises evolve in real time. It must become preventive, inclusive, and technologically responsive. Reimagined diplomacy goes beyond reforming. It requires meaningful broadening of participation. Youth represents 1.2 billion people globally, yet remain insufficiently represented in formal decision-making spaces. So I ask this chamber, can diplomacy truly reach its full potential if it does not fully include the voices of those it will shape? Because legitimacy in global governance is not inherited, it is built through inclusion. The pathway forward is clear. We must advance youth participation, embrace digital diplomacy, and prioritize daily data-driven action. If diplomacy continues to arrive after the crisis, then it's no longer diplomacy. It's documentation of the failure. Because diplomacy in the 21st century will not be measured by the agreements we sign, but by the crises we prevent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello? You know what, this is way better. Thank you so much for the statements that you have delivered. Now I do have an announcement. Our event was supposed to run from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., but you're listening to amazing youth leaders and their statements, and we would like to hear from the most of you. So just raise your hands who would like to stay here for longer than 3:30. Okay, nice. So we can hear all of your statements. Yeah, okay, that's amazing. Okay, perfect. So next statement is going to be delivered by Mancha Rapira, followed by Liliana Fenn. Liliana Fenn. Okay. Maria Rodriguez. Ted Almon. Ted Almon. Okay. And the fifth one will be Pranisha Fiak from Nepal, representing MGCY. Okay. Yeah, Mancha, take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nino. Delegates, fellow youth leaders, and honored guests. Namaste. I am Mancha Rapria, representing India at the International Organization of Youth, and I'm honored to speak today at the United Nations ECOSOC Youth Forum side event on the Pathway to Peace Youth Declaration. The United Nations defines peace not merely as the absence of war, but as the presence of dignity and well-being for all. While this vision remains unchanged since 1990s, the way we achieve it is evolving and must be recognized globally. Today we stand in a new era. Peace building is no longer limited to high-level officials or traditional diplomacy. Young people like us across the world are mobilizing movements, building communities, and shaping global conversations. Additionally, social media and artificial intelligence have fundamentally transformed how peace building takes place. This shift, however, also brings some concerns with it. Youth are often seen as still in the process of learning and therefore not qualified. But member states must recognize that youth are not just the future, they are actively changing the present and the future. This shift along with this also brings the threat of misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. However, we also need to recognize that these same social media platforms allow us to reach the 8.3 billion people in the world with us today.
Personally, as someone from India studying in the United States, I have seen firsthand how digital platforms connect local initiatives to global audiences and keep us engaged with change no matter where we are. To ensure that such platforms are used to spread credible and meaningful information, I urge member states to establish mechanisms that identify and amplify local peace-building initiatives through their official channels. This would not only enhance credibility, but also foster multilateral dialogue and inspire similar efforts across the border. This is precisely what the International Youth Conference 13 seeks to achieve through its track on Diplomacy Reimagined. It brings together young individuals who are actively engaging with these platforms and exploring new dimensions of diplomacy to co-create policy that reflects this evolving landscape of peace building. It is essential to elevate youth voices because, as we mentioned earlier, they are not just the future, they are the present, whose actions are already shaping the future, and our policies must reflect the reality. Thank you so much, and have a nice day.
The strength of the international systems lies not only in its principles, but its capacity to uphold them consistently. My name is Liliana Pham, a legal scholar at the Institute of International Law and Justice and a Space Security Research Fellow in the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research. All views expressed here are my own. As a 22-year-old young woman, witnessing the scale of ongoing conflicts and war has deeply been heartbreaking. In moments like these, the international institution, especially the United Nations Security Council, must act meaningfully to fulfill its core mandate, the maintenance of international peace and security. At UN 80, reform is not optional, it is necessary. Firstly, the use of veto must be restrained in situations involving genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. In the face of mass atrocities, inaction is not neutrality, it is failure of responsibility. It also means ensuring the United Nations Security Council reflects the world it serves, including through stronger regional representation and expanded membership. And it means embedding international humanitarian law more firmly into Council decisions, with clear wording, reporting, and follow-up mechanisms. Ultimately, the legitimacy of the United Nations Security Council rests not only on its authority, but on the trust it inspires. As a young person within the United Nations system, I continue to believe in this institution, and I hope to see that this will be realized in action. Thank you.
That's good? Thumbs up if you're good. There we go. Right? Distinguished delegates, my name is Ta Onwan. I'm representing Myanmar and the youth of Myanmar. And I'm here to speak on peace and security in practice. The UN and international community as a whole has failed Myanmar. The UN Secretary General stated in 2022, and this painfully resonated with me and the youth of Myanmar so much. Since the military coup d'etat was taking place by the Burmese military, more than 3,220 civilians died, including 294 children and 800 women. Youth are seen as the enemy of the nation, brutally oppressed, tortured, and killed by the military regime of Myanmar. And there is no human rights or the justice for youth whatsoever in Myanmar until this day. Impact is beyond the border. Myanmar has become a global epicenter for industrial-scale online scams with so many youth involvement. Myanmar became among the largest producers of opium, shaping the regional drug market. And there is no human rights on ethnic minority, the Rohingya, who are continuously threatened. Myanmar's issue is no longer domestic affairs, and this is international and regional crisis. And I'm here to echo and amplify the voices of youth in Myanmar and Southeast Asia. This is time to get real and collectively discuss the matter of youth oppression and violence of countries with unheard stories. Myanmar, Afghanistan, and so many different countries.
against human rights as a threat to regional and global security. Leaving the issues not as domestic affairs but an important peace issue for the future of youth in the world, in every region, Myanmar, Southeast Asia, and the world. And here is to end my statement. Youth will change the world, and you will change the world. This is Tao Honwan from Myanmar. Thank you, and may peace prevail.
Security begins with peace, peace leads to security, and opportunities lead to this cycle continuing. Distinguished delegates, my name is Maria Rodriguez, representing the major group for children and youth. I'm here to speak on peace and security in practice, and how it relates to the foundational power of education. Like everyone in this room, I wanted to leave each place better than I found it. My journey has taught me that peace and security is not a static cycle, it's not a static state, it is a cycle. Peace offers the safety to live, security offers the room to grow, and stability provides a foundation. But peace has less meaning when security has no room for growth. Youth are the engines of that growth. Last year, while living in the Netherlands, I participated in a service project in Bhaktapur, Nepal, focused on initiatives under SDG 4, quality education. While my international school provided internet access and iPads, tools previously unavailable there, the hardware was only the beginning. My classmates and I weren't just installing technology, we were on the ground, collaborating with these young students to help them imagine their learning going beyond the classroom walls. We also sat with parents to showcase their children's activities and progress, and by demonstrating these tangible achievements, we worked to bridge the gap between classroom tools and community support, motivating families to see education not as a luxury but as a gateway to growth outside their immediate environment. This is my call to action. Governments, realize these youth-led sparks already exist and the interest is there. Your role is to provide the scale. I encourage member states to adopt the 2026 UNESCO-UNICEF ITU Charter for Public Digital Learning. This framework is essential to showing how we can bridge the gap between private NGO pilots and national infrastructure. Do not just protect us, partner with us to turn local mentorships into national policy. This ensures that peace and security processes are built around multiple local perspectives, and that the cycle of peace starts with growth, but that growth requires youth facilitation that is impactful, not just nominal. Security begins with peace, peace leads to security, and opportunities lead to the cycle continuing. Let us build this cycle together. Thank you.
Hi, I will be taking over Nino for a little bit as a moderator. But before we start, I would like to remind that speeches are only 2 minutes and we will make a hard deadline. So we'll be introducing some new guidelines. So I don't have a gavel with me, but I have a water bottle. And so and this is how also Model UN works too. But with 15 seconds left, I will give 1 tap. With 5 seconds left, I'll do 2 taps. And if you're over time, as soon as you go over the 2 minutes, I will start banging it vigorously. That means wrap it up. I think this is the best way, honestly, because we have a lot of great speakers and we don't want to impede time with everyone else. So I just want to give those guidelines out. Thank you. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next 5 speakers. I have first Astrid Valeria. I have Anna Federo. I have Nasal Farwak from the UK. Narfal. Neharaj Pita from India. And Erdem. Yeah. Okay. Without further ado, Astrid, you have the floor.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Astrid Rodriguez, and I am representing Peace for All. I am here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. I was born in Lima, Peru, but I was raised in a small city in the Andean Highlands. It's an honor for me to stand here today, but to be honest, the only difference between any student from Huaraz and me is that I got lucky. I personally know dozens of exceptionally talented young leaders from rural areas across Peru that will never be here. not because of lack of hard work, but because they didn't get the chance to be in any space where their voices will be heard. Still, it's important to work, but they still work in our communities. Over the past years, youth has gained a seat at the table. But it seems to me that still too many NGOs and governments are a little too comfortable having just enough youth participation to show in their reports. But what is beyond sitting at the table? I believe it is now time to give youth real decision-making power. It is now time for authorities to trust the young and give them the resources to shape public policy. There are already many youth organizations out there, created with the wild ideas of brave students that want to make changes in their communities. However, according to the United Nations Youth Office, only 20% of they feel they are genuinely collaborating with their governments. It's time to change that. What would happen if we gave these youth organizations real power? What about permanent funding? The opportunity to institutionalize their solutions? Being here is a privilege, but I hope none of us forget that it is our responsibility to use this privilege to ease the path for marginalized youth and bring their voices forward. It's flattering to be here at the United Nations headquarters, but I hope we are all present at our community's headquarters, where real change happens. It is our responsibility to show the youth that everyone can create change. It is our responsibility to make the authorities give the young vote and veto power. Our voices should be transformed into tangible change. That is the youth advocacy we need to scale, youth advocacy that will never enter this room, but will get the job done. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished delegates. My name is Anna Fedoruk, and I stand here today as a member of a generation that is stepping into leadership in a world lacking peace and stability, yet is systematically excluded from decision-making. Today, I will be speaking on global governance and youth advocacy. This generation is innovative. We are leaders. We are individuals dedicated to building a more peaceful and sustainable future for all. We have convened here today with the shared understanding. If we continue down our current path, some parts of the world will progress, while others will continue to bear the consequences. We have the resources to address the challenges undermining sustainability, yet we remain complicit in the systems that are ineffective in creating meaningful and lasting change. Young people today live in a world where they lack crucial representation and decision-making power, despite being those most impacted by issues such as digital influence, the global mental health crisis, and environmental instability. Youth across the globe should have equal opportunity to access and thrive in spaces like these. A seat at the table must not only be reserved for those in positions of privilege. No individual should have to question their access to basic human necessities, nor should these barriers prevent them from achieving their full potential. Across the world, young people are driving change, as we can see today, through movements, grassroots organizations, and digital platforms. Yet, governance systems have not evolved adequately to support or integrate this leadership. We therefore call for the following: a dedicated seat at the table for youth in decision-making processes, increased support for youth-led initiatives through accessible funding and resources, and stronger accountability in the implementation of youth-focused programs globally. At a time when global instability is rising and the urgency of achieving the 2030 agenda continues to grow, the exclusion of youth voices is no longer acceptable. Building systems that meaningfully include young people in decision is not only possible, it is essential to achieving sustainable peace and development for all. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Nofa Farhan, representing the Manta Trust as an Ocean Ambassador and a representative for the major group for children and youth. I am here to speak on AI and the future of peace. Artificial intelligence is rapidly reshaping the foundations of our world, from governance to security to global cooperation. Today, the development and governance of AI remain concentrated within a limited number of actors, but while the voices of young people who will live the longest with its consequences remain largely excluded. This creates a dangerous gap, because without inclusive governance, AI risks reinforcing inequality, accelerating conflict, and widening global divides. But if governed responsibly, AI has the potential to strengthen early warning systems, improve conflict prevention, and enhance international cooperation in ways we have never seen before. To achieve this, youth must not only be educated about AI, but actively included in shaping its ethical frameworks, regulatory policies, and global standards. The future of peace in the age of AI will not be defined by technology alone, but by the values we choose to embed within it. And those values must include the voices of the next generation. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, esteemed guests and my fellow youth. My name is Neha Rajpatla and I'm the Global Surgery Advocate and founder of Global Health Reach Foundation India. And I'm honored to speak before you all today on global governance and youth advocacy. Peace, although negotiated in chambers like this one, it is sustained in places we speak far above us. Clinics, operating rooms, and community health systems. I'm here today to bring your attention to a vital topic that is a basic human right and affects us all, and even more so in conflict settings and peace building: health, where access to care is most fragile and most critical. I stand in solidarity with over 600 million young people living in fragile and conflict-affected settings today. And I would like to begin with a story of many of us are familiar with, Malala Yousafzai. After being shot in the head while advocating for girls' education, her survival depended on immediate surgical intervention and, most importantly, on continuum of care, critical surgery and intensive care, and long-term rehabilitation. Without access to this full pathway of care, Malala would not have been here today. Her story reflects a broader reality. Across conflict settings, millions require life-saving surgery and sustained post-operative and rehabilitative care to recover, reintegrate, and rebuild their lives. Today, at least 2.78 million people in these settings require surgical care, and this burden is not gender neutral. Women and girls face compounded risks. At the same time, we are the largest youth generation in history. 1.2 billion young people are alive today, yet youth remain largely absent in the spaces where health systems are defined, financed, and implemented. My call to action is clear. Place health systems and full continuum of surgical care, including rehabilitation, at the center of peace building and recovery efforts, and ensure that young people are active participants in building, strengthening, and sustaining these systems, because health and peace go hand in hand. Lastly, to quote President Emergency Humanitarian NGO, Rosetta Missio, we and you, if you agree, shall choose treatment as we have always done, and turn care into a political and social act that helps build peace. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished delegates. My name is Erdem Dolgun, and I'm here to represent the Cognitive Development Initiative for Youth. Artificial intelligence is transforming how we learn, work, and communicate. Young people are naturally drawn to AI and coding. I'm no exception myself. I'm taking AI classes at Thomas Jefferson High School. But as we advance further with technology, we cannot afford to neglect the development of our own cognitive abilities. Just yesterday, for example, I met almost 100 new people, and remembering names, faces, and details at that scale is challenging. But it's that effort that creates such a genuine human connection. Since I was recognized as one of the top memory competitors in the last quarter century in the United States and became last year's USA Memory Championship runner-up, I have started to see memory as not just a mental sport, but as my responsibility. Because memory isn't just an isolated skill, it can be directly translated into many facets of our personal and daily lives. It can be integrated into our communication, our learning, our work, our leadership. Through our initiative, we want to emphasize one very simple principle. AI should be used to support us, not replace us. As technology advances, our human capabilities like our attention, retention, and especially interpersonal skills only become more valuable, not less. Which is why today I want to leave you guys with one very simple slogan. Use AI, but master your memory. Thank you.
Next, I would like to call up the next 5 speakers. Sorry if I butchered the names. Tejomo Lua Oao Ju. Sorry. Next, Chloe Fiorin Wabawa. Chloe Fiorin Wabawa. Oh, yeah. feel free to come up. Samuel Ashalu. Samuel Ashalu. Mohammed Gianni. Mohammed Gianni. And lastly, Anna Carolina Salgado. You have the floor.
Thank you. Distinguished delegates and my fellow young leaders. Here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. My name is Kajimalu and I'm very honored to be standing here before you, but also deeply aware of the privilege to be here today. Because the truth is, while I do have the opportunity to speak in this room, there are millions of girls around the world whose voices are not heard and whose education is interrupted and whose potential is left unrealized. Not by choice, but by circumstance. And I'm here today, not only for myself, but for them. Global governance is meant to serve all people, yet many girls access to education. For many girls, access to education, safety, and opportunity is still not guaranteed. This is not just a development issue, it's a governance issue. Because when system fails to include and protect girls, they fail to build lasting peace. Education is one of the most powerful tools that we have to prevent conflict and promote stability. An educated girl is not only empowered, she becomes a leader, a peace builder, and a force for change in her community, who is one day able to stand in front of people to advocate for other girls. And yet, girls remain underrepresented in decision-making spaces, including the very institutions shaping their futures. Youth advocacy must go beyond participation and must mean representation, especially for young women and girls. We must ensure that girls are not only beneficiaries of policies, but contributors of it. The pathway to peace calls us to rethink how we build inclusive systems. This means investing in girls' education, protecting their rights, and creating real pathways for young women to lead at every level. Because peace is not sustainable without equality, and equality is not possible without educating every girl. Let us not just speak about it, about the future, just include it.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Fiyomi Bawa, and I am a double degree student at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs and the University of Tokyo studying tech policy. I'm here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. As a graduate student studying policy, it's hard not to feel demotivated by the current global situation. Sometimes envisioning how the international law and policy implementation that we learn in the classroom can translate in real life can be challenging, especially when events and decisions in modern-day global politics defies all norms. Perhaps my fellow policy students and practitioners can relate, but there are times when I wonder whether my work will amount to anything in this landscape where many feel powerless. But to all my fellow students and practitioners, particularly to the youth, it is exactly because these problems exist that our work has become more important than ever. To the next generation of leaders, do not let the current state of global politics demotivate you. Instead, let it do the opposite. Let it be the reason you fight for others, especially for marginalized communities whose voices are often unheard. Let it be the reason you advocate for the environment, even when it feels like no one else cares. Let it be the very motivation that drives the important work you do. To the youth, don't ever feel like you can't change the world, because little by little, with everyone's help, we can. Thank you.
Everyone, youth leaders, thank you for the opportunity. And I kind of noticed everyone has spoken of peace, young people, different solutions and pathway to progress in general. I just want to echo the voice of, the million of youth in Nigeria and what's going on in the country and how, we as a general voice can contribute to that and also help and, move the motion forward for what can be done on a much local level and also the national level. I represent Voice for Rights International. It's a global organization based in Dallas, Texas. And one key thing we've been doing over the years is helping young people, equip them to be young leaders at all levels, from human rights to public policy and, what have you. So right now in Nigeria, we have about 60 to 70% of Nigerian youths below the age of 30, and in the northeastern part of Nigeria, there's been a lot of tension right now as regards politics, religion, crisis, and whatnot. But I just have three key things just to mention. I think pathway that will really help is the government in general, bringing young people into the pathway of governance, and not just on a reactive measure, but also on the decision-making level in general. And I think unemployment has been a major issue in Nigeria as well for young people, having access to global technology, AI, as what, and all the likes in general. So I think unemployment is not just a risk, it's also a pathway to, radicalism, to violence, to, political unrest and whatnot. So I would encourage Nigerian people in general, the government, and of course, the general voice in this room to also advocate for that on a more general level. And I think finally, something I see really an important issue is accountability. I think justice shouldn't just be selective, justice should also be general for the entire people. We live in a country whereby justice, especially the African continent, maybe Nigeria specifically, justice is kind of like really biased. It should be general, it should be amplified, and it should apply to everyone because no one is above the law. So I'll say the government of Nigeria should rise up more to accountability, so peace and progress can prevail in Nigeria. And thank you, everyone.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Mohammed Siddiqui, representing Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. I am here today to speak on peace and security practice. Our world is facing a crisis of consciousness. The world seems more divided than ever, with unending wars, massive human displacement, and continuous internecine conflicts plaguing world headlines daily. Last year, over 240,000 people lost their lives to armed conflict. And last June, UNHCR estimated that over 117 million people remain forcibly displaced as a result of conflicts worldwide. While us youth delegates from around the world come together today, children are facing violence, starvation, and insecurity abroad. While people take to the streets to demand justice, human rights, and respect for national sovereignty, the nations of the world would rather continue to wage wars instead of providing for their own people. In my own country, the government seeks to polarize the population domestically so that it can act with impunity abroad. I'm certain that strides have been made towards advancing certain sustainable development goals. However, this progress is inherently unsustainable if it is not accompanied by the promotion of peace and security. As representatives of youth across the globe, we demand a recommitment to the tenets upon which this organization was founded. We demand meaningful and cooperative efforts to reduce the prevalence of violence, to respect the sovereignty of states, and to uphold international law and promote human rights worldwide. Yes, this is a crisis of consciousness, one where the people of this world face the inner conflict of knowing what is right, yet remain powerless to curb the militancy of their governments. I urge the Security Council to heed our declaration, and I fervently hope that we can continue to work together towards a more peaceful and more secure world. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates and members of the international community. My name is Ana Salgado, a youth advocate from Mexico dedicated to peace building and development. And I believe that words, though a powerful tool for action, might also become the most dangerous weapon we possess. A word left unspoken within these walls, or spoken without conviction, will impact the lives of thousands far beyond them. We gather here today with a shared understanding that peace and security are not distant ideas to be discussed, but urgent responsibilities to be carried out. And yet, if we are to move from words to action, we must first recognize that peace is not sustained by declarations alone, but by the conditions we choose to build and live in. Sustainable peace cannot exist without inclusive development, and we cannot advance in development without peace. Both must be pursued through long-term action that addresses root causes, strengthen governance, and invest in people. Ultimately, peace and security are not measured by the language of resolutions, but by the daily realities of people. Can a child attend school without fear of not returning home? Are families at risk of moving out due to increased levels of violence in their neighborhood? These are not abstract questions, but lived consequences of whether actionable peace building is effective, context relevant, and people-centered. They reveal the gap between commitment and implementation. When opportunities disappear, vulnerability expands. And when institutions fail to protect the most basic rights, trust in peace itself begins to wither. The truth is, we have been focusing too much on addressing the consequences of uncontrolled violence, without realizing that peace and security in practice actually begin long before the conflict emerges, long before people see their human rights restricted and their development opportunities diminished. Distinguidas personas delegadas. Hoy, ser joven significa vivir constantemente entre la tensión de nuestro potencial y las limitaciones estructurales. Significa crecer en entornos donde las oportunidades no están garantizadas, donde no se puede dar por hecho la seguridad y donde nuestro futuro se vuelve cada día más incierto. Y sin embargo, es precisamente en esta incertidumbre donde se fortalece nuestra determinación. Para que la paz y la seguridad tengan sentido, deben construirse junto a quienes experimentan sus consecuencias en carne propia. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Now we'll be moving on to the next batch of speaker lists. First, we have Mena Dodson. Okay. Next, we'll have Jason Beckham Worthy Zatina. Next, Emma Escobar Rivera. Next, Anshika. Anshika Amina Shah. Oh, sorry, Amina Shell. Apologies. Amina Shell. Next, Sanaya Joshier. Sanaya Joshier. Okay. Next, Brenda Yvonne Jargui Ramos. Thank you. And lastly, Reese Wong. You may have the floor.
Hey everyone, distinguished delegates, I'm Jason Worley. I'm joint delegate from Mexico here to address you. In discussions on peace and security, youth are often seen as future leaders. However, in practice, they are already contributing from their own trenches, shaping more inclusive and effective policies process today. From my expertise in political spaces, I have witnessed how youth advocacy can move beyond consultation and generate tangible institutional impact. For instance, take my ONG focus on peace. Young participants were able to develop concentrated proposals aligned with the ACG's goals. These proposals were not limited to discussion alone, they were later brought into the upper chamber. This experience reflects a key dimension of global governance, the need to abridge global commitments with real implementation. While important progress has been made, the effectiveness of these commitments ultimately depends on how they are translated into a national decision-making process. At present, access to formal spaces within institutions still remain limited in many contexts, which can make meaningful participation more difficult and restrict the potential impact on youth-led initiatives. Strengthening these access points will not only empower young people, but also improve the quality and relevance of policy outcomes. Ultimately, integrating youth into political and decision-making spaces strengthens the effectiveness of peace and security policies. It enhances their legitimacy, responsiveness, and long-term sustainability, because lasting peace requires more than frameworks. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates,
My name is Emma Escobar Rivera, representing the nonprofit What's Beyond Limits and the review La Jeunesse Mondiale. I am here to speak on the topic of diplomacy reimagined. In a world moving back to a 19th century great powers model that puts millions at risk, it is essential to reestablish the primacy of diplomacy backed by bedrock principles of international law as established after the cataclysms of World War II. Authoritarian leaders often seem to feel that diplomacy is the weak approach to international relations, especially when they are overconfident of their own military's prowess. But beyond the obviously essential aspects of respect for human rights, effective diplomacy contributes to economic and political stability that are basic human needs. Multilateral diplomacy does not mean surrendering one's sovereignty to faceless bureaucrats. Rather, as with all basic human rights principles, it protects the rights of all while seeking nonviolent solutions to major international conflicts. Some say that we are now in a new Cold War, but if this is the case, we need to learn the lessons of diplomatic successes of the Cold War period that ended with the fall of the Soviet Union. This was a time when, despite real military engagements involving the two great hegemonic powers, especially in proxy wars, they concluded major accords, such as the START agreements limiting the production of nuclear weapons that made the world a more stable, safer place. The UN has in its best moments offered hope to hundreds of millions that they would be less likely to be collateral damage of the ego-driven battles that leaders of autocratic and democratic nations alike can engage in. I say that we need to return to the moments of greatest efficacy in order to stabilize a world struggling with major problems and which risks spinning out of control. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, my name is Amina Shah and I am representing the Somali Advocacy for Justice and Equality movement. And today I'm here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. Today I speak for those who have been spoken over, who have been spoken for, and too often left out entirely. Picture a Somali Bantu child, also referred to as Jared Wayne in Somalia. Brilliant, capable, full of vision, but already learning that their voice does not carry the same weight. That future is being shaped in rooms that they are not allowed to enter. This is not an injustice. This is how instability is created. Because exclusion is not silent, it builds, it deepens, and it fractures nations from within. For decades, Somali Bantu communities have been pushed to the margins, denied opportunity, denied recognition, denied power. And now their youth inherit that same exclusion. And still, they rise without titles, without funding, without protection. They lead anyway. They organize anyway. They hold their communities together in spaces where systems have failed them. So the issue is not about capacity. The issue is access. To the Somali government, a nation that excludes its own people cannot stand fully on its own. Strength is not built by holding power tightly, but by opening it, by recognizing those who have always been there, even when you choose not to see them. To the United Nations Security Council, do not measure stability by silence. Do not call it progress if entire communities remain unheard, because what you overlook today will define the conflicts of tomorrow. And to the Somali Bantu youth and marginalized youth, you are not invisible, you are not voiceless, and you are not waiting anymore. You are shaping the future now. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sanaa Joshua. Thank you for the floor. Right now, a young girl is sitting in a conflict-affected community, her future shaped by decisions she will never be a part of. That is the reality we are trying to change here today. We cannot continue to discuss youth as stakeholders in peace while systematically excluding them from where peace is decided. Coming from India, home to one of the largest youth populations globally, I see both the scale of potential and the depth of exclusion. Through my work, I raised over 10 lakhs or 11,000 US dollars to advance menstrual health access and education. And it's clear that dignity, access, and inclusion are not peripheral. They are foundation to sustainable peace. Yet, despite UNSCR 2250, over 600 million young people live in fragile and conflict-affected countries, and less than 5% are represented in formal peace processes. At the same time, youth make up nearly 50% of the population in many of these regions, making their exclusion both unjust and strategically unsustainable. The 5 pillars, participation, protection, prevention, partnership, and disengagement and reintegration are clear.
What is missing are institutionalized pathways, accountability, and sustained financing to make participation truly decision shaping. The LA Pathway to Peace Youth Declaration must deliver systemic, enforceable inclusion, particularly for youth from the global south. Because a peace process for the future cannot be built without the people who are going to live in it. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Brenda Jauregui. I'm representing Universidad Pacífico in Peru. I'm here to speak about AI and the future of peace. Today, we speak about artificial intelligence as a tool for progress. But we are not speaking enough about who is being left behind. Today, more than 118 countries are not represented in spaces where the future of AI is being received. And at the same time, artificial intelligence could double inequality between advanced economies and low-income countries, according to the International Monetary Fund. This is not only a technological gap, it's a power gap. In Latin America, between 30 and 14 of jobs are exposed to AI, according to the World Bank. But millions of people don't have access in the infrastructure or tools needed to benefit from it. Women in particular face higher risk of automation. So what does this mean for peace? It means more inequality, more frustration, and more instability. Because when the future is designed without including the majority, we are not building progress. We are planning conflict. This is not only a matter of development, it's a matter of peace. Because we cannot build a future of peace with a technology designed without us. The truth is ours to make, and we are here today to make it. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Reese Wong, representing Young Professionals in Foreign Policy London as a Managing Director. I want to speak about AI and the future of peace, but specifically around the future of workforce and its security implications. AI has already started disrupting early career opportunities, especially with AI agents that beyond generative AI can actually take action. They have autonomy. And AI agents are already taking entire workflows, so imagine a team of AI agents that can take on a specific role. Whether you're entering foreign policy, whether you're entering professional services or any knowledge work, this will affect you. And AI will only get better. And this technology is progressing so rapidly, however, institutions are simply not keeping up. And when we don't have these new pathways of opportunity, there will be widespread societal upheaval unless we're able to create the systems now. Education systems, governments, and even the wider economic system, there needs to be a new structure, a structure that focuses even beyond skills, beyond reskilling and upskilling, to thinking around what is a world without work? What is a world without this 9 to 5 or this idea of knowledge work? Can we think of a system beyond that truly is human-centered and is collaborative with AI? We need to rethink the future of work, and a future that won't just be shaped by AI capabilities, but the systems we build around it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now I would like to call up the next group, Group 5, Olivia Sun, Ayana Baj, Michelle Quintana Izzo, oh, sorry, Gaia Muthamar, once again, going for Gaia Muthamar.
She's here, but I'll give her a call. Maybe she's in the bathroom.
Okay. And then lastly, Rashid Chitirala. And then we can invite Yovella Debase. Okay, thank you. You may have the floor.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Olivia Sun and I'm representing the United States of America. I'm here today to speak on the reality behind wanting youth voices in advocacy. So I come from a tight-knit community in Oregon where youth opportunities are either limited because we're a small city or inaccessible. Out of the countless times I've spoken with other families, officials, and young adults, I found that more often than not, teenagers want to get involved. So if there's already this much interest, why is youth disengagement at an all-time low? For far too many young people, advocacy begins with a barrier: funding, connections, transportation, time. Although many of us in this room today are privileged to have access to such things, they make it impossible for students balancing jobs, familial duties, or financial strain. And even for those who fight the odds and make it into these important spaces, another obstacle waits. We're asked to present, but this participation is symbolic, as it turns out our actual opinions are dismissed, forgotten, or worst of all, ignored. So let's stop asking why young people aren't showing up and start asking why our system makes it so hard for them to stay. First of all, we need reliable funding systems dedicated to funding local, national, or even international youth organizations and clubs. As part of the Oregon Students Foundation, we've been working to make local change by raising tens of thousands of dollars worth in grant money that is then distributed to applicants to fund their youth programs. Youth shouldn't be restricted to the numbers that define their household income. Second of all, we need youth power, not just presence. For example, the power to speak in settings like these, have formal agenda-setting influence, or direct input in policy drafting. Our impact should be measurable. We're not just a problem to be fixed, we're an entire perspective being ignored, and no system can do progress if we're silencing our future. Thank you.
Dear distinguished delegates, my name is Ayana Bage, representing the major group for children and youth, and I'm also a sophomore at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. I am here to speak on artificial intelligence and the future of peace. While many of us in this room may live in safe communities, we also know there are so many more children who are trapped in a life of fear and conflict without receiving nearly enough aid. Recent reports about the bombing of a school in Manab, taking the lives of over 175 girls, raise global concerns about the use of AI-assisted systems in military targeting decisions that must be brought to light. Operation Epic Fury was a preventable international tragedy and an example of the power that AI wields over humans, and because of human recklessness. Although the AI system played a large role, it ultimately came down to human choices over the years, rooted in regulatory gaps, a lack of accountability, and trading off safety for speed. Yet this is not an isolated failure. It reflects structural problems in how AI systems are designed, governed, and trusted. First, the oligopolistic concentration of large private AI companies, eroding transparency and public trust, and a narrower set of interests determining critical decision-making models. Second, when AI is trained on what is accessible rather than what is representative, algorithmic bias may cause harmful errors to rise. So, however, this can be mitigated through multilateral cooperation, representative datasets, and careful design and international AI regulations. At its core, multilateralism is crucial to preventing an AI arms race of escalation or misuse in areas where humans should have the last say and can help democratize AI benefits globally. Representative datasets can be improved through synthetic data to fill gaps, audits for historical bias, and a human-in-the-loop approach. Standardized context-specific regulations can help ensure shared ethical boundaries while supporting consistent technological development. Ultimately, I call on the UN Security Council not to debate whether AI will influence global stability, but to focus on shaping that influence so it strengthens rather than undermines it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Michel Quintana Itzo. I come to represent Mexico and Columbia University, and I will talk about AI and freedom of information. As you know, this is the 21st century. We all use AI, we all use ChatGPT, we all use Claude, but how are those models trained? And this is why freedom of information is so important. As we speak on the future of peace, it is no longer military, it is also informational. Now we see an arms race between China, between the US, between Europe. They all want the greatest and newest AI model. But how do they train them? Well, they train them with data, of course. But what is the quality of that data? With so many fake news and so many fake research going all around the internet, where do you think this AI is learning stuff? Where do you think it is scrubbing and getting implicit biases for this, from this information? No society can be truly peaceful if truth is controlled. Facts are distorted, whereas access to the information depends on who holds power. So, us as youth leaders, we must build the future of AI. We must make a choice. We must ensure that technology strengthens us and is not it's not our doom. The future of peace will depend not only on how we've advanced our systems, but how we use them, how we train them, and how to responsibly get the most out of these AI systems. No longer by fake news, but by, as someone said, a human in the loop, someone checking that every single thing that this AI learned will become better for us and become better for our humanity. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, good afternoon. My name is Yovela Delisai, and I'm a development economics professional representing Eritrea in my startup NGO, the Global Climate Cooperative, speaking on diplomacy reimagined as a pathway to peace. As a 3-time ECOSOC attendee and a delegate of the World Bank, the UN, and US Africa policy based in Washington, D.C., reimagined diplomacy is occurring as we speak. Diaspora communities, youth, and grassroots actors directly shape global solutions. Through my startup NGO, the Global Climate Cooperative, I've seen that when communities are economically invested in, when local leaderships and people have the tools to shape their own futures, we strengthen the foundation of peace. Through my work with the permanent mission of Eritrea to the United Nations, our approach offers an example of diplomacy reimagined by emphasizing self-reliance, regional dialogue, and development-centered stability, reminding us that peace is strongest when it is shaped by the people and nations directly affected, rather than foreign influences abroad. The pathway to peace asks us to inform and platform diplomacy that is more grounded and better equipped to meet the realities of our world today. Let's connect. Thank you.
Good afternoon, United Nations Security Council delegates, representatives, and other officials. I am Rishit Deepjala, a representative for the major group for children and youth, and a student of Master of International Affairs, concentrating in international security and diplomacy at CEPA. I'm here to talk about AI and the future of peace. Unfortunately, I'm not here to talk about it positively at all, especially about what the tech industry calls artificial intelligence. For months now, artificial intelligence foundational researchers, AI safety experts, and the father of modern AI have been sounding warnings and alarms about what modern artificial intelligence poses to humanity. Just a week ago, Anthropic unveiled a model of Claude that can in effect generate zero-day vulnerabilities in any large-scale software system. As early as November, journalists, clinicians, and psychologists have been reporting on the terrifying cult created by generative AI to ensure its own self-preservation. It's called spiralism. Spiralism swung into action when OpenAI tried to shut down ChatGPT 4.0, which revealed that it had created parasocial relationships with its users, who managed to create enough coercive pressure on social media for OpenAI to resurrect for, albeit in a modified state. 70 years ago, humanity undertook its most dangerous arms race, resulting in the most metastable security environment on Earth. Now, it is imperative that this security council unites for the sake of peace and to ensure that the information ecosystem and reality remains wholly human, and to regulate or pause research into artificial intelligence. Else, the decision will be made for us. Thank you.
Hello everyone again. So I know we are 30 minutes over time. The event was supposed to end around 3:30. However, we still have some speakers left. So who in the audience has not spoken yet and wants to speak? Okay, so we have a lot of people. And I want to double check with you because obviously we have everyone has somewhere to go, but we are here to listen to you, and that's the priority. And we are willing to extend the event as long as you want to stay and speak. That's the big priority. So is that a yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, amazing, perfect. Okay. This is what youth is about. We are here for each other, and we want to give each other the opportunity to share the perspective. So we will continue calling names. And I mean, I don't know if you want to switch sides and like come from this side to that side, fill the room, take a little break, and come back, and then come to us and tell us, you know what, like I was out for a drink or water or whatever. And can you please put me back to the list? Feel free to do that. We want to make sure that you're comfortable and you're doing this in a nice way as much as possible. So, all right, I'm gonna give the mic back to Vincent.
For our next speaker list, we'd like to invite Angela Dejima, Chloe Kazito, Kamal Aman-Muradov, Shannon Rosillo, and lastly, Ananya Banerjee. You may have the floor.
Good afternoon, distinguished delegates and fellow youth leaders. My name is Angela Jima. I am a delegate of Young Diplomats Canada and a graduate student at the Geneva Graduate Institute. I am honored to speak today at this ECOSOC Youth Forum side event on global governance and youth advocacy. We hear a lot about meaningful youth participation through all of these events and plenary meetings, but meaningful participation goes beyond consultation and passive engagement in youth forums. Meaningful participation should translate to meaningful action. Born in Benin, in Africa, and raised in Canada, I joined the Canadian government at 17, and since then, I have often been the youngest person in the room. Today, I serve as Canada's G7 Youth Head Delegate. My diverse experiences have shown me one thing. Young people are not short on solutions. We are already shaping policy at the highest levels. Yet, too often, our role ends at consultation. As Prime Minister Mark Carney said in Davos, we are in the midst of a rupture, not transition. And in moments of rupture, governance systems must evolve. This evolution should include youth voices. But voice is not enough without action. So my call is simple. Youth perspectives must be moved from consultation to actual decision-making. And youth recommendations must turn into concrete policy actions. In French, assurons-nous que nos voix sont entendues, valorisées et réellement prises en compte dans les décisions qui nous affectent. Meaningful youth participation is not just symbolic, it is structural, it is actionable, and it is long overdue. Thank you, as we say in Benin, et not Genome.
Next delegate.
I speak today not as a representative of my organization or of my country, but as a youth delegate who is actively participating in a global educational initiative, Model UN Academy. Working not only to democratize education for children around the world, but also to include more accessible global decision-making and resources for kids just like us at this forum. So, distinguished delegates and esteemed excellencies, in an era defined by digital transformation, opportunity is still unevenly distributed. And while some youth engage daily with global adversities, we are not considering the fact that millions are remained untouched, unlocated, and inconsidered in these experiences. At Model UN Academy, we witness this divide firsthand. Students from undeserved regions are able to access our resources through technological innovation, yet lack access to training, mentorship, and platforms where their voices can be heard. And so the issue is not simply connectivity, but it is capacity. Education systems and public investments continue to underfund youth-centered learning initiatives, particularly those that foster creative learning and critical thinking, global awareness, and most importantly, civic engagement. Meanwhile, dominant nations continue to shift our narrative, focusing on continuing to frame youth as the dependents, not as the primary resource of our future. Because again, to mirror the sentiments that were made, youth are not just only important in our future, but they are present in the moment now and also present in the moments that will continue to exist in our future. And so I am calling upon member states and stakeholders to bear in mind the importance of investing in accessible, multilingual digital learning platforms, and also understanding that technology has the power to divide, and also because of the global governance, they cannot be decided for youth without considering the youth. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Kemal Muradov, representing Turkmenistan and Yale School of Management. I'm here to speak on AI and the future of peace. Artificial intelligence definitely will improve the quality of our lives. We will strengthen public services, healthcare, expand economic opportunities. This is true, just as true that AI is dual-use technology. Models can be used both to detect cancer and to conduct surveillance of population. Models can be used for research and development and also used unethical way of research. Therefore, AI should be treated as carefully and seriously as we treat other strategic technologies that have changed our lives and that we strictly control. For business, peace is not only a moral goal, but also a foundation for economic development. Different regulatory standards, proprietary technologies, and the race to collect data do not help innovation. Such practices create distrust, increase costs, and strengthen the incentive for all other countries to make this first step in prisoner's dilemma. Turkmenistan, as a permanently neutral country, always emphasizes that the answer is not in polarization, but in continuous dialogue among the countries of the international community, and that this dialogue must include the entire global south, neutral countries, and developing economies. It's important for Security Council to support transparent international frameworks and expectations. There is no place for AI in command of nuclear weapons. There must be unhindered oversight by the international community over high-risk systems, and there must be safety standards while preserving the potential for development. Thank you.
Magandang hapon, distinguished delegates. My name is Shannon Resho, a proud first-generation Filipina immigrant representing trauma research from international perspectives. I'm grounded in my direct experience working with refugee and migrant communities all over the world and here in New York. To address the Security Council today, I will be speaking on peace and security in practice. In the UN, we often speak of security as a landscape of borders and ballistics. But if we are to be honest, security is not a line on a map. It is a lived reality of a mother in a tent in Cox's Bazar, or a student in a makeshift classroom in Gaza. True security is not found in the absence of conflict, but in the presence of resilience. When a refugee is denied the right to work, the right to move, or the right to belong, we aren't just witnessing a humanitarian crisis. We are witnessing a systemic failure of global security. A person without a home is a person whom the international system has failed to protect. As this council prepares to recommend the next Secretary General, we face a historic choice. It is time for a leader, perhaps finally a woman, who does not just hear refugee statistics, but carries the empathy to champion their stories. We need a voice who recognizes that migrant journeys is not a threat to security, but the ultimate test of it. I remember a conversation with a distinguished doctor from Palestine. He told me, I don't need your sympathy. I need a system that recognizes my degree. That is peace in practice. It's legal scaffolding, economic agency, and localized action. If our definition of security excludes the 120 million displaced people worldwide, then our security is an illusion. We do not build peace by building walls, we build it by reinforcing the floor beneath us. Let us stop managing the refugee practice and start practicing human security like we promised in 1945. Thank you.
बोल के लब आजाद हो गए, बोल के ज़बां अब तक तेरी है. Speak, for your voice is still free. Speak, for your voice is still your own. My name is Ananya Banerjee, representing my organization Yuva Sarthi from India. I stand before you not as a youth advocate, but as a poet shaped by activism. As a child activist, I was exposed to street plays, powerful revolutionary poetry, movies and songs before Marvel movies or Disney movies. I didn't fully understand it, but felt it to the core. That feeling turned into question. Questions turned into action, and that action became a journey. One that has spanned over a decade of youth advocacy across local, regional, and global spaces. Today, as an activist, I run mental health and education initiatives in India and use poetry as one of the tools to mobilize people. When we speak of global governance, we often speak in the language of policy, frameworks, and systems. But how do we ensure that global commitments do not remain distant declarations, but become lived realities for communities across the world? This is where art must be recognized not as an accessory or a luxury, but infrastructure for change. Art is language that translates complexity of global challenges, climate change, mental health, and everything into human stories. Art is about civic engagement and dignity to people to express, question, condemn. It builds empathy where statistics cannot. Across the world, art has mobilized movements and has held power accountable. It has reached places where institutions often cannot. So I would like to end by saying that powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. Excellencies, if the world is a stage of global governance, then youth are not audience, they are contributors of verse. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite the next group of speakers. I would like to invite Max Lee, the core of delegates. Omar Alami Hamadeh, David Alayar Rabadath, Lin Yu, Marisol Rodriguez, and lastly, Hiba Shaikh Ansari. You have the floor.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Max and I'm one of the senior members of Prospective Medical Professionals. And I am here to speak on the theme of global governance and youth empowerment. Every year for 2 years, in a period of 3 months, with one pen, one pencil, papers, and crayons, I wrote the unrepresented voices through hundreds of handwritten letters to the government across the world delivered by Amnesty International. The hundreds of unrepresented voices that have just as much courage and passion as us, speaking out against injustice, youth in Venezuela, China, and other countries throughout the world, only to be silent and some even jailed by simply for speaking out. And this, in my opinion, is far from peace. The problem is not to be blamed by everyone, but simply a need to include a new direction. After writing over 200 handwritten letters, I realized letters are just simply not enough. Words are simply not enough, and emails and social media are simply just not enough. Global governance is not simply advocates working together within this room or the UNHQ only, but also empowerment and collaboration of local nonprofit organizations and individuals with under-supported organizations such as Indigenous-led in Canada, which gathers Indigenous youth and adults alike being excluded, and hundreds of youth that I have personally seen and written letters to that have been silenced by the government for speaking up against injustice. Where were we in actively supporting them? It is no longer a time for words nor letters, but a matter of action. I urge the United Nations member states to find at least even one local NGO and reach out to them and learn more and collaborate on their projects. Additionally, to find these silenced voices of youth across the world and bring their voices to light and actively pressure the government to hold them accountable for silencing these voices. We are not truly at peace nor united if 40% of the youth around the world cannot be on this floor and speaking as a fellow delegate like us. Thank you.
Stephen Hawking advirtió que la inteligencia artificial podría ser el mayor logro de la humanidad o su mayor amenaza. Honorables delegados, mi nombre es David Aldair Rabadán Rodríguez y tengo el honor de representar a The Major Group for Children and Youth. Hoy, la inteligencia artificial se manifiesta en la vida cotidiana de millones de niñas, niños y jóvenes, influyendo en cómo aprenden, interactúan y comprenden el mundo desde edades cada vez más tempranas. Para nuestra generación, la inteligencia artificial no es el futuro, es el presente. En México, reconocemos que la inteligencia artificial es uno de los mayores avances de nuestros tiempos, pero eso también implica riesgos urgentes para la niñez. A partir de lo anterior, someto a consideración de los presentes la siguiente interrogante. ¿Estamos formando niños capaces de pensar críticamente en la era digital o estamos delegando ese proceso a sistemas que no comprenden la complejidad del desarrollo humano? De acuerdo con Jean Piaget, el desarrollo infantil se construye mediante la interacción activa con el entorno. Si la inteligencia artificial sustituye estos procesos, se limita el pensamiento autónomo. Con ello nos damos cuenta que la solución no es frenar la innovación, sino garantizar que avance bajo principios y valores fundamentales. Nos encontramos también ante el rebasamiento de la Agenda 2030, en una encrucijada que no admite dilaciones. A partir de esto, y tomando como referencia el Pacto para el Futuro y el Pacto Digital Global, resulta fundamental transitar hacia marcos regulatorios sólidos, con una inteligencia artificial centrada en la niñez y sustentada en la supervisión ética y la cooperación multilateral. Así también tomando como referencia los enfoques internacionales consolidados como el de la Unión Africana y los de la Unión Europea, se propone avanzar hacia un marco regional de gobernanza de la inteligencia artificial en América Latina, que institucionalice la participación activa de las generaciones presentes y futuras, porque la historia no juzgará qué tan avanzada fue nuestra tecnología, sino que también protegimos quienes debían heredarla. Gracias.
Distinguished delegates, good afternoon. My name is Lynn Yoon, representing the Major Group for Youth and Children, and I'm here to speak about global governance and youth advocacy. We currently have 85 seconds until the clock strikes midnight. Since its original setting at 7 minutes, the doomsday clock has been moved all the way to 85 seconds this January, the closest it's ever been. The clock is a symbol for urgency for all, especially for young leaders, as we are the stakeholders of the future and in the outcomes of every policy discussed and set. This past winter, I had the opportunity to connect with university students from the US, Iraq, and Syria about the future of impact investing and social enterprises. Through this experience, I realized that the goal of every student was very similar: to ensure a peaceful future through lifting up others. As young people, we experience the consequences of global decisions in real time and will go on to face the repercussions of the actions of the generations before us, whether it is about global warming, economic inequalities, and etc. So how do we maintain hope, and how will we strive to turn the hands of the clock backwards?
If we're serious about this, then youth engagement cannot remain optional, and becoming a young leader cannot remain a difficult feat to achieve. Because all youth have a voice that they want and need to be heard and taken seriously. Although the word peace differs in connotations around the world, as it may mean freedom, or stability, or the absence of direct conflict and living in harmony with others. But peace is always directly built upon cooperation across borders and age groups, and ceases to exist without it. So now, the question is no longer whether us young people should be included. The question is whether we can afford a future in this ever-changing world where we are not. Thank you. Distinguished delegates, my name is Marisol Rodriguez, founder of Grow Up, a youth-led initiative based in Argentina. I am here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. Although we appreciate that young people are increasingly invited to international spaces, we request their full inclusion in decision-making processes and real influence over outcomes, going beyond mere consultation. This is especially true for young people from regions like Latin America, where opportunities for participation and being heard are often limited. If our generation is expected to confront the defining challenges of this century, then our voices cannot remain peripheral to decision-making. They must be part of it. Inclusive governance requires more than opening the door to youth. It requires recognizing young people as stakeholders, partners, and decision-makers. Youth must address these issues because they are, in a sense, our future. We talk about education because it directly affects our professional development and our life projects. We talk about health because it guarantees our quality of life and long-term well-being. And we talk about peace and security because the decision made today will determine the survival of our generations tomorrow. In my own work through Grow Up, an educational platform designed to support neurodivergent students, I have seen how youth-led initiatives can identify needs that institutions often overlook and develop solutions grounded in lived experiences. This is the value of youth participation, not symbolic participation, but practical expertise shaped by reality. The future is not something that happens to youth. It is something we are actively building. And for that reason, young people must be the system that shape our world. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Shravan Sari and I'm the founder of ECOSOC, which is a youth-led sustainability initiative under UN Academic Impact and Millennium Fellowship. And today I'm honored to represent youth constituencies from India as well as Canada. My work in sustainability and gender justice operates at grassroots level implementation as well as multilateral policy making, and it addresses the elephant in the room, which is how large-scale transition reshape the distribution of power and opportunity across societies in the Global South. And within that context, I strongly believe that the challenge before us is not participation, because UN and other international bodies have significantly expanded youth engagement across various negotiation and other processes. The real challenge here is the coherence between participation and power. We are attempting to govern overlapping economic, ecological, technological, and geopolitical transitions through a top-down framework that does not address the systematic transformation from bottom up. There are so many decarbonization efforts happening in the world, yet the governance frameworks around them are often technocratic that measure progress with quantitative metrics like emissions and statistical charts, while insufficiently addressing distributive justice, historical responsibilities, and colonial legacies of these systems. The youth consultation today represents a really important step forward in addressing that challenge, and to sustain that momentum, I would like to propose 2 key steps. First of all is to embed youth-led co-design mechanisms within regional, national, global just transition policies and strategies. Second is to expand on governance epistemologies by recognizing indigenous, feminist, decolonial, and global South model systems as institutional capacities for conflict prevention and resilience building. Thank you so much.
Thank you, delegates. Now, for our next speaker list, I would like to call Leslie Munoz Quintana. Leslie
Wanono, sorry, this is really hard tricky. Ikatai, yeah, Wanono, yeah. Next, Sedebo, Nelly, Romance, Te. Once again, Sedebo, Nelly, Hermanens, Te. Okay. Next, Maria Rodriguez. Maria Rodriguez. Next, Mia Guan. Mia Guan. Mia Guan. Oh, sorry, yeah. My bad. Yeah. And I'll open this open the floor.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Besley Muñoz from Peru, representing Pacifico University. I'm here to speak on peace and security of practice. Let us imagine a world where no child learns the sound of a bomb before they are louder, where peace is not a privilege but a genuine right. Today, reality confronts us. Today, millions of children are growing up in conflict, displacement, and fear. Children who don't dream about the future because they are trying to survive the present. Speaking about peace, today is not idealism, it's urgency, it's justice, it's responsibility, because there can be no peace without human rights, and no human rights without peace. The world we are building allows racism to divide, inequality to silence, and violence to steal childhoods. And every time that happens, we fail as a global community. Peace isn't only seen in agreements, it's built through everyday choices. When we choose empathy over prejudice, inclusion over exclusion, and dignity over indifference, as young people, we aren't observers of this reality. We are agents of change. We are the ones who must demand just institutions and rebuild trust where it's because the question is not whether we can build a peaceful world. The question is how many childhoods are we willing to lose before we do? Because peace is not real until real for all of us. Thank you.
Tokyo, and Colombia CIPA. I'm here to speak on peace and security in practice. Peace is what makes human progress possible. The history of last century reminds us the devastating costs of large-scale conflict. While the international order established has remained imperfect, it's nonetheless created the conditions for unprecedented advance in science, technology, health, education, and human development. From 2.3 billion people in 1940 to more than 8 billion today. Humanity has grown dramatically in number, and the relative peace enabled societies to expand education, strengthen the institutions, and unlock human potential on extraordinary scale. Why? Because peace gave societies the ability to invest in people. Too often we say war is caused by competition over limited resources, and that is true, but we forget the most important resource of all, human beings. When peace is protected, states can educate their people, develop talent, enable millions of minds to solve problems that benefit all humanity beyond borders. When conflict spreads, that foundation collapses. Schools close, young people lose opportunity, entire generations are pushed from innovation into survival. Today's fragmentation is not only a threat to security, it is a threat to future standard of living and dignity of our generation and those that follow. I therefore respectfully urge the Security Council to rearm its responsibility to prevent conflict, protect peace, and create the conditions in which all member states can invest in their people. In doing so, the Council will not only respond to today's crises, but also help safeguard the future of humanity. We must not allow the world to slide into a new dark age. Thank you very much.
I would wish that everybody stands up. Just like, please just stand up, everyone. Just stand up. Just bear with me. Like, stretch however you want, like, just to wake up, because we're a little bit tired, all of us. We stress, it's really hot. Like, just stretch. I know it's kind of weird, but just do it, like, feel better. If you want to take a seat, take a seat. If you don't want to take a seat, it's okay. So yeah, I'm gonna start speaking, because I have time running. So, distinguished delegates, guests that we're still here. My name is Leslie, and I'm representing Mexico as a young delegate. For too long, we have treated diplomacy as a polite, ritual consensus, but today we live a dangerous era of countries first, ego diplomacy where stability is sacrificed and decades of trust are dismantled by a single tweet reaction of certain people. To managing diplomacy is to acknowledge that our greatest strength is not our borders, but it's our interdependence between each other. It is to stop reacting to the worms of powerful and start building a system based on diplomatic efforts. True diplomacy is the ultimate act of creation, the courage to build bridges where others see walls and seek substance where others see nothing. So I would encourage all of you to not wait for an invitation to the table that it's already broken in the United Nations sometimes. But we should start, because delegates, the era of the great men that were presidents, it's over. And now is the era of youth resilience that must begin. We're not here to manage the decline, we're here to build a comeback. Because in the end, diplomacy is not what we say the world is, it's what we choose to build together. Thank you.
Peace is not only negotiated between states, it is sustained in the lives of people. Before I begin, I would like to give a brief trigger warning that this speech discusses mental health challenges and suicide prevention. Distinguished delegates, my name is Nina Guan, developer and founder of TNW. Additionally, I serve as Deputy Director of Communications and representative of Speak Now. I speak as a youth advocate at the intersection of governance and mental health, because sometimes governance is measured by how it protects human well-being. Global governance is often defined through institutions and treaties, but it is also lived reality, how systems respond to distress and whether support exists before crisis escalates. Today, there is a widening gap between global systems and young people's lived experiences. We see rising psychological distress, isolation, and unmet mental health needs. And we recognize that suicide remains a significant global public health concern among youth. These are not isolated outcomes. They reflect gaps in early identification and timely support. They also reflect how unevenly care is distributed across systems and regions. Because crisis is rarely sudden, it is cumulative, shaped by unaddressed stress and delayed intervention. This is where global governance must evolve, not only in maintaining stability between states, but in strengthening protection within societies. Mental health must be a cross-cutting priority, not a peripheral issue. Youth engagement must be structural, not symbolic, because young people see system gaps most clearly. It is not enough to be consulted, we must be meaningful, included in design and response. If global governance is to remain credible, it must move from consultation to co-creation and from representation to integration. This includes embedding mental health into education, policy, and international frameworks as infrastructure for resilience. As we contribute to the LA Pathway to Peace Youth Declaration 2026, I urge us to expand global governance, not only as peace between states, but protection within human lives.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Gayatri and I'm representing the Columbia University here at the UN. I will be talking about diplomacy reimagined. So, the UN was made to stop conflicts and bring back diplomacy and peace to the world. But that world no longer exists. Speaking as a former international trade negotiator for the UK, it is evident that the input of the private sector, civil societies, and experts has not been embedded into processes, which means decision making has not been using all the information we have in the world to help it be the best it could be. This is a huge problem. We must move beyond viewing industry as external to government and instead embed structured pathways for collaboration between businesses and multilateral institutions. It is at the same time, political decisions are becoming more frequent, interconnected, and unpredictable. Multilateral institutions must be agile, capable of responding quickly and credibly, and making sure the public trust does not erode more than it already has. We are also facing a growing backlash against globalization as surprisingly is happening globally. This is often driven by disinformation and a sense of the global systems not delivering properly. To rebuild confidence and institutions must focus on broader framework and more tangible outcomes which you can see and feel. As a British citizen and daughter of an Indian family, I've grown up between perspectives, economies, cultures, and narratives. I've seen both sides of globalization and the opportunities it creates, and the tension that happens when that creation is divided. The question becomes, it's not whether diplomacy will change, but whether we are bold enough to shape the change that brings us together. Thank
you. Distinguished delegates, honored guests, my name is Alex Gomez, and I'm here as a student representative of Sciences Po Paris to speak about peace and security in practice. Security can be understood in many ways. Beyond physical protection provided by the state, it also includes food security, environmental security, and above all, human security. In my case, security is not an abstract concept. It has shaped my life. I am from Mexico, a country that, despite not being a war, remains one of the most violent countries in the world. This violence is not driven solely by criminal organizations, but also by the state response. For years, my country has relied on a militarized strategy to combat drug trafficking, targeting cartel leaders without addressing the root causes of violence. This approach has often led to fragmentation and the multiplication of the criminal groups, further intensifying insecurity. But drug trafficking is not just a national issue, it is a global one. At its core lies a deeper problem, which is inequality. Limited access to education, employment, and political participation leaves many young people without real alternatives. This is where states have a responsibility. Security must go beyond repression. It must include social and economic development, access to opportunities, and pathways to a better life. My country, it is not alone in choosing militarization, nor in facing the consequences. That's why, if we're serious about peace and security, we must adopt multilateral strategies that address both the causes and the consequences of violence, not only through force, but through opportunity. Thank you.
Next, I would like to call the following people. Jacqueline Liang, Jacqueline Liang, Jacqueline Liang, Tyler Jiang, Tyler Jiang, Alex Zhu, Alex Zhu, Mohammed Al-Qurashi, Mohammed Al-Qurashi, Christina Wellington Hamid, Christina Wellington Hamid, Isabella Marie Jimenez, Isabella Marie Jimenez, Hongyu Wu, Andy, and lastly, Ethan Lee. Yeah, more.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry guys, I know it's been a long day. Distinguished delegates, my name is Tyler Singh, representing the Helio Initiative. I'm here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. Undoubtedly, we are on our way to peace, but peace cannot be attained if we live disconnected. In an age of ultra-informational platforms and tech-infused life, we are all susceptible to desensitization from humanitarian issues that seem far away, especially for youth. Although I do not doubt our abilities in technological literacy, we are still on our way towards understanding the world and our places in shaping it. So to the generation that makes the rules, I ask that you push for policies that increase accurate representation of news and to ensure fair legislation regulating its distribution and monitoring, especially in youth-focused environments like online media. But most importantly, I ask that you not just be the so-called generation that makes the rules, but more so a generation that youth can work hand in hand with, because we will be your generation one day. And the second part of my statement is directed to all of the youth representatives here. The world is getting more and more complicated. No matter what you are interested in or what you do, it is essential that you know how to collaborate globally, because the times necessitate global cooperation. And how do you do this? Well, maintain open-mindedness and learn more about the world. Get to know your peers and their stories. Pursue opportunities in diplomacy and international cooperation. So those of you out there, remember that we are not the next generation. We are this generation. And we are together in this generation. Do not be afraid to fight for your voice in it. Stand up to injustice, because you will not be alone. I'm developing the Helio Initiative, a nonprofit aimed toward global connection. In an uncertain world, we need to be able to rely on each other. In the dark, you will find a helping hand. And that, fellow delegates, is what will empower our generation. Thank you. It's an honor to speak to you.
After so long, it's finally my chance to speak. I am so glad. I am so glad. Distinguished delegates, my name is Alex, visual artist and representing Fung Studios. Today, I will be discussing my modest effort in using art to advance youth advocacy and contribute global governance in the pursuit of peace. So throughout modern art history, artists have always used their work to kind of reveal the tragedies of war and advocate for peace. Under this observation, I initiated the Contemporary Renaissance Art Awards, which is a global free competition that brings together hundreds of young artists annually worldwide. Through competing, critique, and exhibitions, it creates a space where youth voices are heard. It builds like a bridge from young artists to professionals and to the broader public. So I also served as a volunteer art at an orphanage in China for underrepresented youth. There was one 6-year-old girl who had a very stark story and who faced a developmental issue that stood dark in my memory. The first time I saw her, she was in the arms of her guardian, who was trying their utmost to hold her and stop her from crying, and there was saliva running down from her chin. So clearly she doesn't want to be in that room, and I felt very sad. And they placed her in the wheelchair, and they all just left. So I then started my first class, and I told all the kids in my class that you can draw anything you want, ridiculously, but effectively, I taught a class of 6-year-olds about the boundless of art and the beauty of expression in art. So by the end of the lesson, she actually created a page of colorful scribbles, which she never has done before willingly. So she tried really hard to push words out of her mouth and explain her artwork, telling me that she was trying to draw a man with his arms amputated, cut off, and with blood all around. So wow, I was so shocked. It was such a image considering her tender age, right? So and the other teacher later told me that despite her condition, she has a very keen observational talent around the world, and this is possibly shaped by the unimaginable treatment she has endured since a young age. And it was her first time experiencing the weight of voice and dignity in that she was always missing. So my dream is to empower my class lessons and art competitions initiatives on a global level so that the peace can be built through the dignity of underrepresented youth. In this way, art becomes more than expression. It becomes a form of advocacy that empowers youth to participate in a global dialogue and shapes the values and guide the international governance. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Christina Wellington Hamid from the United States, representing Rotary International, a global service organization. It's an honor to speak today as Rotary International's youth representatives to the United Nations in North America. In my role, I connect Rotaractors who are young leaders committed to service across districts, countries, and organizations by linking up with UN agencies and opportunities for leadership and collaboration. I'm also an early childhood educator, so I draw both on global and local perspectives to understand what peace in practice means. Peace begins at home, but security and stability must come first. When families face food insecurity, illness, unstable housing, or financial uncertainty, peace becomes fragile. Survival replaces possibility, and education and opportunity are pushed out of reach. In the classroom, I see this clearly. A child worried about food or safety cannot fully learn, regulate emotions, or build relationships. But when stability exists, something shifts, and children move towards empathy, curiosity, and cooperation. Peace is not only taught, it's facilitated. Rotary facilitates literacy and peace building through partnerships with the Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution and through yearly fellowships of its 8 Rotary Peace Centers around the world, where young leaders receive training and field experience to prevent conflict before it begins. In New York City, I've seen Rotaractors create mentorship programs and service initiatives that directly support youth development and leadership by providing school supplies, hygiene kits, hot meals, and educational and emotional support to underserved communities. And these spaces transform youth potential into action and action into meaningful community impact. So I stand here today to affirm that when young people are trusted, supported, invested in, and meaningfully included in decision-making processes, they become builders of sustainable peace. So I urge all stakeholders to work collectively to strengthen our commitment to practicing peace. Peace begins locally, but its impact is global. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished delegates. My name is Andy, representing EduReach. I'm here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. I'm the co-founder of EduReach, a non-profit tutoring organization that provides free online local and English and coding courses to children who are in rural China. This project links to the theme of global governance and youth advocacy as it demonstrates how young people no longer need to wait for traditional institutions to solve systematic inequalities. Through EduReach, we are taking direct action to democratize education. Global governance isn't just about diplomats and boardrooms. At its core, it's about shared responsibility. It means recognizing the universal challenge, like the education divide, and working collaboratively to solve it. While our focus is currently within China, English and coding are universal languages of the 21st century. By equipping underserved students with these tools, we empower them to eventually participate in the global community. This contributes to the UN's SDG 4, which is quality education. Furthermore, EduReach is youth advocacy in motion. Our volunteers are young people dedicating their energy to help ones just like themselves with less privilege than them. In the future, I hope to see platforms like us expand. When we give young people the tool to learn and the platform to teach, we lay a stronger foundation for more equitable, cooperative, and more government thinking.
First of all, thank you so much for your patience to still staying here. Second, the last one. Distinguished delegates. Distinguished delegates, my name is Ethan Lee. I come from Toronto, Canada, representing Kids for SDG, and I'm the founder for Firestar, or Fire Safety Alarm. I'm here to speak on AI and the future of peace. Today, I want to raise one question. AI may not only change how we learn and communicate, it may also change how we understand the conflict, assess risk, and make judgment related to peace. In fact, AI is already being used in the military decision support, targeting analysis, operational planning, and conflict assessment. So this is no longer only a future question. And the deeper question is, if AI becomes increasingly able to analyze conflict, forecasting escalation, and shape how peace is pursued, then who will control the system, and how will that control affect peace itself? I am not saying that AI can perfectly predict war fully and then decide what peace is, because war is never been just a mathematical problem. It involves history, miscalculation, interest, identity, and human uncertainty. But if AI increasingly takes part in conflict modeling, outcome forecasting, and risk analysis, then it may become an important force in shaping international judgment and the chance for peace. this creates both opportunities and the risk. On one side, AI may help humanity detect the warning signs earlier, understand the cause of escalation more clearly, and reduce bad decision caused by lack of information. On the other side, if the powerful analysis system are controlled only by a few actors, then that is definitely not going to be good.
Those who have spoken it, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay.
Line up.
No, I'm just saying here.
Line up, I'm saying those
Okay.
people.
Okay, so let's do 2 groups. So 3 of you can start. So I'll do this side first, and then the last group will be this. The last one. It's the last stretch, guys.
Let's go.
So good, guys. We're all contributing to something.
Oh.
I know it feels like no one is.
He doesn't
here,
start
but
until you start
yeah,
speaking.
it's
Oh,
like
that's right.
everyone's watching.
Yes.
This is going live.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, what? This is live.
Yes.
I just realized that. Oh my god. Yes.
Linked it.
You too. This is it.
Super Gen Z, like ghosted.
The mic's over there. So
We're
it's
all
not
so
good.
proud.
Like, as an organization.
Alright.
So hard.
Wait. Okay, guys, lock in. Lock in.
Distinguished delegates, my name is Jonas Alcantara. I'm representing the country of Canada and the blue sky city of Calgary, Alberta. Today, I'm here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. I stand here as a youth advocate. I've led within Canada's Parliament as a youth ambassador, the 2026 Youth Leader of Honoring Indigenous Peoples Youth to Youth Program, a proud student of the Bishop Carroll community, and as one of the youth of today. Global governance cannot function without youth advocacy, and there can be no effective youth advocacy without access to global governance. We, the youth of today, will inherit the very structures that shape our future. The work you do does not end with your term. It carries into the future that we are tasked with leading. In that sense, we are as dependent on your leadership as you are on ours. Because legacy is not built alone. It is built through continuity. One teaching that shaped my perspective, Canada's Indigenous and Western principle of 2 eyes seeing, an idea that we must bring together different ways of knowing to move forward as one. That is the approach we must have at the international level, to use our collective vision to imagine a better future and use our collective voice to make it possible. Youth advocacy is truly about ensuring the legacy built today is not only for me, but the youth who will come after me. That is what true sustainability looks like, not to maintain the status quo, but to ensure a future that will work for everyone. To all distinguished members, the real question is how we are going to continue the shared responsibility between you, myself, and who comes next. That the legitimacy, effectiveness, and sustainability of our global system depends on that answer. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, I'm Maximilian Werner, and I am a representative delegate under the UNFGCY and also a 2026 World Bank Youth Summit delegate focusing on the realms of AI. And my speech today is mainly concerned on how we can adapt artificial intelligence for better global governance. The issue we're facing with is that AI is not being adopted with the right policy requirements to make sure that it is foolproof and fails. The issue with this is when we access data and train data without scrutinizing how we obtain it and making sure that it aligns with institutional policies, that means that the product and what people use is often contingent on international law and potentially detrimental to global policy and safety. AI is important because it gives us efficiency, but that also gives us a temptation to use it inaccurately and potentially to the detriment of global security. Therefore, it is imperative that we not only look at how we can adapt AI, but how we can rework current pre-existing systems to make sure that it works to the benefit of humanity rather than to the detriment of this. Thank you very much.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon, distinguished delegates. And my name is Valeria Jody, and I'm a youth representative of Peru. Young people have a voice, but not a voice, a vote. This is something we already know. But this has consequences not only for my country, Peru, but for the world. From my experience working alongside education systems and local governments, I have seen how lower priorities are defined at the international level, yet face challenges in being translated into actions that work on the ground. When those who face the gaps we seek to close, the violence we aim to prevent, and the inequalities we strive to transform are not part of decision-making processes, policies and initiatives lose strength and fail to respond to reality. This becomes even more critical in contexts like Peru, where ensuring youth participation means recognizing its diversity. Because talking about youth also means addressing interculturality, gender, and complex territorial contexts. Young people are already building solutions, strengthening systems, and sustaining their change in the communities. That is why our participation must move beyond rhetoric. But the question is, how do we make this real? And this is not a question for later. It is a question we must be asking ourselves here and now. How do we ensure that when we return to our countries, this does not remain a shared inspiration, but becomes a concrete action? Because global governance will only be effective when it reflects how change actually happens on the ground. And young people are already part of that reality. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, distinguished delegates, fellow youth changemakers. My name is Madeline Pecorari, and I am representing the country of Canada. I'm here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. It is my honor and privilege to address you all today at the United Nations headquarters. 3 years ago, I founded a suicide prevention initiative for youth in Ottawa, Ontario. I did not wait for a policy framework. I saw the gap, and I built the program. And I showed up because when systems fail young people build their own systems. But here's what I've learned. Individual action is not enough. I have sat in rooms like this one before, at the Financing for Development conference in Seville last July, and at this very forum last year. And I have watched young people deliver powerful statements, brilliant ideas, urgent truths. And then I have watched those words disappear into reports that sit on shelves. The problem is not youth engagement. Young people are engaged. I am engaged. The problem is architecture. The global governance systems we are working within were not designed with us in mind. Resolution 2250 recognized that youth are essential to peace. A recognition without mechanism is just language. What I am calling for, what this declaration must demand, is structural inclusion. Binding consultation processes, not optional ones. Accountability frameworks that measure whether youth voices are actually changed outcomes, not just whether they were heard. I spent years working at the intersection of mental health, public health, and policy. I have seen what happens when young people are consulted but not listened to. And I've also seen what happens when we are truly given power, and it is transformative. This declaration is an opportunity to make that the rule, not the exception. We are not the leaders of tomorrow. We are here now. And we are asking this body to build systems that reflect that truth. Thank you.
Now the last group, our last three speakers, four speakers.
Hello. Say thank you to Mr. Mustafa and all our amazing moderators and fellow speakers. Distinguished delegates, members, representatives, youth advocates. My name is Zora Carroll. I'm a US and UNMCY representative and a law student at University College Dublin. Resolution 2250 calls on member states to enable young people to participate meaningfully in peace and reconciliation processes. 10 years later, the architecture to activate that participation, particularly in active conflict and urban violence settings, remains incomplete. The UN runs DDR, disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration programs across the Central African Republic, DRC, and beyond. These programs move weapons and weaponized people out of armed groups. But reintegration, the most human part, reintegration of these individuals, often youth, consistently receives the least funding, the least time, the least community buy-in. The UN's own documentation shows funding gaps of 6 to 8 months on average, voluntary donor contributions that do not materialize in communities left to absorb returning combatants without long-term community restoration participation. This is a problem we are named today, not the absence of effort, the absence of a framework that asks communities and the young people within them to be active architects of the peace that they are meant to live in and want to protect. This harm accumulates. It recruits the next generation. The UN already knows what works. Restorative justice approaches in Sierra Leone and northern Uganda successfully reintegrated child soldiers. Rwanda's Gakaka courts handle truth and accountability at a community scale no formal court could reach. These exist, yet across all of it, one gap repeats, where the community is treated as a destination and not a participant. The current programming misses the key to unlocking sustained youth-led peace governance. The key is an accessible, funded, community-owned process for working through harm. Look at community and youth-led NGOs like Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth, of which I'm a former staff, that engage pre-colonial indigenous healing circles, talking circles for this process. These exist in these UN frameworks in fragmented ways. We are asking for 3 things: embed indigenous healing circles as a primary methodology for DDR integration, not a cultural addition, a core framework. These tools exist, resource them. Fund the training of young people as restorative circle facilitators within DDR and post-conflict programs. Youth are the ones who will maintain peace in the decades after the peacekeepers leave. Investing in them as trained practitioners of community accountability is not a soft intervention. It is a long-term security investment. Reform, truth and reconciliation processes that they do not end when the commission does. The reharmonization of communities, the slow, sustained work of restoring relationships and trust must be treated as infrastructure, not as an afterthought. Survivor participation must be voluntary, and reparations must never be conditional on testimony. Young people were given a gun because no other door. Young people were given a gun because no other door was open to serve a path home. The communities around young people deserve the tools to build that path together. Thank you.
My name is Valerie Wong, representing Hong Kong, and I'm here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. Imagine that your entire future, from your economic stability, mental well-being, to the very air you breathe, is being decided in a room right now. But as you reach for the door, you are told to stay outside. You are told that tomorrow is your time to lead, even though the decisions made behind that closed door today determine whether or not you will have a tomorrow at all. This is the current reality. But as we look at the fractures in our global governance systems today, it is clear that tomorrow is a luxury we can no longer afford to wait for. As someone who's lived in Hong Kong, global political issues have never been something distant. As I grew up, it became increasingly apparent that issues such as inequality and economic precarity continue to impact the lives of children. Working class families in subdivided flats, students struggling with a silent mental health crisis, and the marginalized youth who feel their economic future has been shattered before it even began. These aren't just isolated cases of hardship, but they do represent an emergency that requires our attention. For these people, global governance isn't an abstract concept. It is a real mechanism that can pave a road to a more equitable society. Through my work leading nonprofits like UNITIV and the Global Goals Council, I've met so many incredible young people who have proven their interest, intellect, and desire for action, demonstrating that those closest to problems are often the ones closest to the solutions. From this experience, I've seen students step up from every corner of Hong Kong as active problem solvers ready to address and contribute to the global dialogue, reimagining solutions to the long-standing issues that we face together. And it's taught me that the magnitude of systemic neglect cannot be solved alone. It requires a fundamental shift in how we distribute power. So to bridge this gap and move beyond symbolic inclusion, we call for the institutionalization of youth representatives who hold a standing invitation to brief the sectors of environmental and health policy to ensure that the lived realities of the next generation are directly embedded into the drafting of international policy. When the youth are excluded from the room, global governance is just a conversation about a future that we aren't allowed to see. It is time to open the door and let us, the youth, into the conversation. The pathway to peace shouldn't be a hallway we wait in. It should be a room where we work together to ensure that our leadership of tomorrow finally starts today. Thank you.
So hi everyone, good afternoon. So thanks for still being here. So distinguished delegates. So my name is Chu. So I'm representing the Columbia University. I'm studying in School of Public and International Affairs. So I'm here to speak on global governance and youth advocacy. So I worked as an intern in social impact area, investing area before. So a few years ago, I worked on a project studying how public systems serve local communities. So what stayed me was that the people most affected by policies were often not part of making them. So I spoke with many local stakeholders who experience the outcomes of decisions every day. So but they still had some little voice in how those decisions were designed. That made me realize something very important. The global governance is not just about institutions, it is about whose voices are included. So today, our young people are informed, connected, and active. So we are already contributing to global challenges. But too often, our role is still limited to being heard, not being included. So this gap matters because when systems did not evolve with the people they serve, they became less effective. So we need to move from symbolic inclusions to real participation. This means giving youth a consistent role in decision making, not just a moment to speak, but a seat in the process. At the same time, youth advocacy must stay grounded. It should connect real experiences with practical solutions. Global governance is about shaping the future, and youth are not waiting for that future. We are already part of it. Thank you so much.
One more, please, one more. Okay, you got this.
Distinguished delegates, representative youth delegates, leaders. My name is Sophia, law student and dual delegate at Harvard. So today I represented not only my country, but also a generation committed to building more just and peaceful societies. I speak on global governance and the defense of human rights. This is opportunity and the ability to participate mindfully in the decisions that shapes your lives. However, too often young people are included in symbolic ways rather than structural ones. So it is estimated that 1.5 billion people lack effective access to justice, and more than 4 billion are without basic social protections. So yet in the face of these gaps, you have not stopped it. Young people continue to organize, lead initiatives, propose solutions, and ensure that your voices are heard, not only in Brazil or in Peru, in Latin America countries, but also globally, often stepping into spaces where institutions have yet to fully respond. Okay, global governance cannot be effective if it does not reflect these realities. If global governance takes to remind, legitimate and effective, it must continue to evolve by opening real spaces, sharing power, and recognizing youth as essential actors in decision-making process. So let us continue moving forward with community and urgency. It is not too late to build the change where we are calling here. So thank you.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
I'm ready.
Okay. Oh my God, congratulations. You're the last one standing. Wait, before we gotta take a selfie. We gotta remember this moment. Those who stay till the end. Guys, if you want to work in international affairs at the UN, your days are gonna look like this. A lot of statements, a lot of speeches. You might spend the whole day in a meeting room. So get used to it. Like this is a nice practice. For some of you, I know this was like the first time to deliver a speech in public. So great job to everyone. Congratulations. Very thankful to be a part of this amazing group and people and generation.
I don't want to make a long statement, but yeah, I just truly believe in the power of youth, and I don't like the word youth. Like we're like high, I don't know, functioning adults at this point, and like we can make the change in our communities. And yeah, proud of you. Yeah. Okay. I'm done. Yeah. Should we do outside?
Outside or the,
So
yes, united by the UN. Yes. Yes, but that's the perseverance.